Good afternoon. We're now ready to begin our THEC meeting for January 26, 2012. I'm going to ask Ms. Carter to call the roll.
Ms. Atkinson?
Present.
Mr. Bone?
Present.
Mr. Fry?
Present.
Mr. Hargett? Ms. Hayes?
Present.
Mr. Isaacs?
Present.
Mr. Johnson? Mr. Kinsey?
Present.
Mr. Lillard?
Present.
Mr. Mann? Dr. Nixon? Mr. Walden?
Present.
Mayor Wharton?
Present.
Mr. White?
Present.
Mr. Wilson? Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. We're ready to begin. Just want to thank everyone for being here today. I know it's raining outside, but this being our first commission meeting of the new calendar year, thank you so much for your presence. We'll get through as quickly as we can, but we do have a special guest here today, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Walden if you'll introduce our special guest.
Sure. So this person is someone who's probably familiar to many of you if you've been around THEC for more than 5 or 6 years. But this person's quickly becoming a familiar face to me as I see him on campus playing pickup basketball games with students and things like that. But ETSU does have a new university president. He's in attendance today, Dr. Brian Nolan. If you'd please stand.
Thank you all. Thank you, sir. I want to ask now that we entertain a motion to approve the agenda with one change. We just want to move the audit committee report up to the first item under the information items, but there'll be no further change, any additions or deletions.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. We have motion second to approve. Call the roll, please. I'm sorry, we can do a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both like that. Thank you. Okay, our next item is to entertain the motion to approve the minutes from both the November 10th meeting and the called phone conference on December the 20th.
Motion.
All right, thank you. We have a motion second to approve both sets of minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Okay, I just want to again reiterate the excitement that I have having Dr. Nolan up in our neck of the woods. We're glad to have him in Northeast Tennessee. We're a little biased. We think it's the prettiest part of the state. So welcome. And again, thank you all the commissioners who are back with us this session. We're looking forward to another great year. And it's really good to always have Mayor Wharton with us as always. You know how busy things are. So thank you again for being here. We're going to turn it over to Dr. Rhoda for your report.
Sure. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, and guests. Welcome to all. I, too, want to acknowledge Brian coming back. For those of us who worked with Brian while he was here on the commission staff, we know the contributions he made to us as an organization beyond THEC, to Tennessee higher education. And he did by all reports, respectable and remarkable job in West Virginia as the state higher education executive officer there. But just could not be, for all the right reasons, pleased that he's back in Tennessee and part of the Regents family. And Brian, we look forward to working with you again.
Thank you.
My remarks will be brief, but I did want to cover just a few things. The first, somewhat as I did at the last regular meeting, and I also want to say thank you all, those who were able to participate in the called meeting right before the holidays. I know that was a kind of spur of the moment, but it was a meaningful meeting where we set forward our new capital outlay and maintenance recommendations for next year, and that was turned on to the governor right after that meeting. So we appreciate your participation in that. So my remarks, kind of like the last meeting, the overarching context for most, if not all, the agenda today is the Complete College Tennessee Act. And that has obviously a tremendous initiative with a lot of different dimensions, but everything we do is pretty much within that, the big goal, greater success, student success, completion rates as it relates to the welfare of the individual students as well as the state. Today, perhaps the most direct links between that agenda, what's the initiative completion agenda, but the operating budgets, the academic program review, which we went over in some depth this morning. We'll hear a report this afternoon from the UT Center for Business and Economic Research about student progression, the annual lottery scholarship report, which again I thank Thomas for his presentation this morning, the high school student survey, the improving teacher quality program we'll talk about this afternoon. It's all focused to what we do, and it's all towards success. The agenda this afternoon, by the way, for the joint meeting with the Board of Education is exactly the same thing as in the context. Of course, our part of the overall education reform, complete college, and on their side, obviously, the race to the top. And Trina Miller on our staff, who is responsible for the higher education part, race to the top, the status report at that meeting as well. So, having said all this, today is the second anniversary of the signing of the Complete College Tennessee Act. It was January 26, 2010, when Governor Bredesen signed the act. We're obviously well into the implementation of that legislation and all the initiatives. We see it with the new master plan, the focus on mission distinctiveness, the new funding formula, and all those other initiatives like the transfer and articulation that were all part of that legislation, and some very significant policy changes, which is now the way we do business. And on that, special thanks to Dr. Deaton for the work and the campus leadership for the way that everyone has really come together to make this work with rather limited resources. So we're almost midway. We're almost at the midway point in our 5-year master plan, which we call the public agenda. And I think it's time to kind of stop and take a look at where we are and where we should be heading. And two things along that line. It would make sense at this point to evaluate how we're doing with implementing the legislation. And in that regard, the Comptroller's Office has underway a performance audit of how we're doing. Now, we in higher education, THEC, UT Board of Regents. And my understanding is there'll be a preliminary report coming out sometime within the next few weeks, but not a binding statement. But I think that'll be helpful to us to see. Again, we've been very conscientious in monitoring and keeping up with everything, but that'll be a objective third-party review. The second is in terms of looking ahead. I guess it's the obvious. How are we going to ensure that we sustain these initiatives going forward? And I think the answer to that, and also building on the groundwork to keep maybe going beyond the legislation, but certainly within the idea of the big goal of increasing educational attainment. So in the case of THEC, I'm going to ask for some help here in a minute. But in the case of THEC, everybody has a role. Ours is obviously implementing the statute, but it's also supporting the institutions and the systems and doing those things. I mean, we've asked the institutions to do a lot under some pretty harsh circumstances. So what are those things that we, THEC, can do? And then in a broader context, work on the public policy aspect and the public engagement that's going to be so important for these reforms to get some traction and truly succeed. So in our case, to do that, the good news, we've had some success with external funding. We have been very fortunate to receive support through the Gates Foundation, through Lumina. I know both systems have as well to pick those pieces. So just saying, we will pursue that even more so in the future. So having said that, I'd like to ask Jessica Gibson to come forward and talk about we've talked about this somewhat, but bring us up to date on where we are with the Complete College America Complete Innovation Grant. Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Rhoda, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. As you'll recall, in summer of last year, Tennessee received a $1 million 18-month implementation grant from Complete College America. We were one of 10 states to receive the grant out of 33 plus that applied. We are about 6 months into the grant right now, and we have a lot of work to do, but we've been very busy. So our grant program is really focused in 3 areas. The first is providing students with access to advising resources through the expansion of the Degree Compass software, which was developed by Tristan Denley at Austin Peay. This has been referred to in the past as a Netflix effect software, the adaptive advising tool. It is now called Degree Compass. And as you recall, the tool allows, it makes course recommendations to students along their program of study and recommends courses in which they are predicted to do well. So 3 expansion sites were selected by the leadership team. Those schools were Nashville State, Volunteer State, and University of Memphis. The technology has been installed at Nashville State. We're beginning installation in Volunteer State and University of Memphis. The software will be tested and then will be ready for students to use for fall registration. Also, as part of the grant, we want to help support Tennessee institutions to implement strategies towards their specific completion targets through a series of college completion academies. The first academy was in the fall of last year. There were 8 institutions that participated. Each institution brought a team of about 8 folks from the campuses. Each team had a facilitator. They had access to content experts, and they walked away from the academy with a completion plan or strategies to either implement or enhance on their own campuses. There was a lot of good feedback from the institutions on those academies, and I believe they were happy with the way that it went. So we are actually having a second academy early April, I believe it's planned at the moment, and we'll have at least 8 institutions. And I believe we're trying to determine whether or not a third academy may be needed. So the final area of the CCA grant is focusing on targeting adults that have work experience and some college experience that want to come back to school and get a credential. And this is going to be through a statewide Prior Learning Assessment Initiative, PLA initiative. And the PLA initiative is made up of several components, one being a voluntary task force, and this is made up of institutional representatives. And the task force will be charged with developing either standards or recommendations around consistency with PLA. The task force has been broken into subcommittees. Each subcommittee is going to look at different areas such as transcripting the credits, portability of credits between campuses, fees around PLA, outreach, student expectations, transparency, a whole host of issues. Each of the subcommittees is going to come back to the task force with recommendations that the task force will then consider. We actually have accomplished something with the task force that we were not expecting, and we actually have 20 of our 22 public institutions voluntarily participating on this task force. So we're very excited about that. Another element in the Prior Learning Assessment Initiative portion is training faculty assessors and career advisors in PLA. We also do some outreach to the business community through a series of 3 regional summits across the state. We are also working with Austin P for a communications campaign that will be both internal and external. And finally, we have, another portion of that. We're going to work with the College for TN website to have a portion dedicated to adult students and to PLA information so that students can make the best decisions they can based on the information that's out there. A recent development is that we've had some conversations with the Nashville Career Advancement Center. While this is not part of our grant activity, we are going to train their career coaches in PLA, let them know what institutions offer it, what types of PLA they offer. And then we've been invited to join a forum for the clients that come into the career advancement centers to talk about going back to school as adults and to talk about PLA as well. So that concludes my update. I'll take any questions.
Questions?
Thank you.
So everything that Jessica mentioned obviously is important, but I would say the thing, particularly the part about the prior learning assessment, we have a statewide capacity to do that. That's going to go a long way to recapturing the adults with some college education, and then as well as those who don't but have significant professional experience. So 3 things real quickly. Another initiative that we're going to be able to do because of thanks to help from the Lumina Foundation, we're having a workshop, not next week, the following week, February 8th, for UT, Board of Regents, and other individuals about how do you communicate change. Bringing in a national consultant by the name of Andy Goodman, who specializes with nonprofits, educational institutions, about how you get your message across to different audiences. And the format he uses is storytelling. Those from Jonesboro would be very appreciative of that. But we're looking forward to it. It's going to be a real workshop. It's a full morning. And in addition to the usual suspects of UT Board of Regents, THEC, THEC, Dr. Presnell, members of his staff, the outreach group that we work with through Troy Grant and Leanne Mary, the old Gear Up organization, the Complete College Challenge Grant, College Access Challenge Grant, the Business Roundtable SCORE. So the idea is to get us all thinking about how to better communicate to those in the public that would benefit from all the changes that are being made. So we're looking forward to that. Related to that, again, through thanks to the help of the Lumina Foundation, the Public Agenda, nonprofit opinion research organization in New York, is going to be working in Tennessee, focus groups, individual conversations across the state, business community, community leaders, all about how do you build in engagement, public engagement, community engagement in increasing educational attainment. We have lots of models, a number of models to look at, everything from the Ayers Foundation in Decatur County to what Mayor Wharton is doing in Memphis, to Kingsport. So we want to get them their best advice to try to understand Tennessee, the differences among communities, and then advise us how to go about really building some community support for what we're doing. And last, and this involves David Wright, David's been asked to be part of what I would say is a rather select group. It goes back to, if you recall, in fall, President Obama, Education Secretary Arne Duncan was really pressing colleges and universities to reduce costs. He mentioned it the other night in his state, the president did in his State to the State. So the Gates Foundation is funding a project, the American Enterprise Institute, and the project is called Stretching the Higher Education Dollar. And they're bringing together some 20 education policy scholars, practitioners, entrepreneurs, policymakers, public-private, for just some very candid conversations about how to do that. So the three topics: opportunities to make existing institutions more cost-effective, unbundling post-secondary education as a route to reducing costs, and federal and state policy reforms that create low-cost pathways. So it says something very good about David to be selected for that, and vicariously we very much appreciate his being selected. My last comment, I'd like to introduce to the commission a new member of the staff who joined us last fall but was not at the last meeting, Wilson Finch. Wilson is working with Jessica on specifically on the Complete College America program. It's the Completion Innovation Challenge program. He has a bachelor's degree from the University of South, Swanee, and a master's degree from Cambridge University, as in the Cambridge University in the UK. So, Wilson, we're very glad you're with us. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my... David, that does not conclude.
I also want to recognize another member of our staff, because I told him he had to be here to be recognized.
Oh, I'm sorry.
His name is Blake Walker. Blake's a national state graduate. He works in our data management area. He's making sure that the data we get is accurate, clean as possible, so that we can present the research results, you're getting good stuff instead of garbage in, garbage out. So Blake, we appreciate you being here. He's a national state grad in computer science. Got a new dad, too.
Yep. Sorry, Blake, I just didn't see you. That concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you for your report, and glad to have the new staff. Congratulations. I'm going to call on Chancellor John Morgan, give us the report from the Board of Regents.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will be briefer than Rich. A couple things let me just say up front. The Completion Academy that Jessica just talked about, 7 of our institutions got to take part in that, and it was truly a very beneficial experience for them, and we really appreciate the THEC's role in making that happen. I think it's fair to say that there were 8 institutions participating. I think there were probably 8 teams of folks who had a fairly high degree of skepticism as they walked into the room for the beginning of the academy, and I believe I can honestly say that all 8 teams left with a high degree of energy and focus on specific things that they can do on their campuses to really enhance student success and completion. So it was a great success, and we're really looking forward to the second one and possibly the third one if we can make that happen. One kind of big deal for the Tennessee Board of Regents was at noon on January 12th when there was a ceremonial raising of the University of Memphis flag over the campus of what is now the University of Memphis Lambeth campus. It really was a grand occasion. It was well attended. The governor was there, and a host of community folks were there. A very exciting proposition. University of Memphis, I think, will bring a lot to Jackson and to that area of West Tennessee, and create opportunities for students to succeed that otherwise simply wouldn't be there. The campus is really ahead of development. We've been offering classes since last fall. The enrollment is strong. Projections are, we had a 5-year plan where we were going to try to get to an enrollment target of 1,000 students a day. Is that right? Wherever Dale is.
Don't they?
Yeah. But we think we're going to be well ahead of that schedule. I mean, the folks in Jackson think that they're going to blow through that number pretty quick. So it's a real opportunity for a public 4-year university to be present in Jackson and complement the other opportunities in that region. So that was quite an exciting day, and we'll be happy to report more to you as that process progresses. I, too, was going to talk about Brian Nolan. So far, everybody has, and we'll see if we keep that string going, Joe. One of the things that I discovered, and I think I shared this with you all previously, is that in the role that I'm now in, as it turns out, probably the most important thing that I'll participate in over the course of my service as Chancellor, which we hope lasts years and years and years, will be the selection of leaders of our campuses. And the opportunity to have a role in that kind of decision that is so far-reaching and has such implications for the state and for the future of so many individuals, but the future of the state is really pretty awesome to be part of that process. And having a candidate like Brian come through that process and be selected is outstanding. He'll do a wonderful job at East Tennessee. I have absolutely no doubt about that. But we're also engaged in other searches as well. Vol State, we've had one search committee meeting at Vol State where we narrowed down to a group of 12 applicants that will be further evaluated on February 1st. The hope is that we would come to a short list of 3 to 5 candidates out of that process on February 1st. Those successful candidates then would be invited back onto the campus at Ball State the week of February 27th for a series of stakeholder interviews and discussions. So we hope to be in a position very soon thereafter to make an appointment or in a position to recommend to the board an appointment for Ball State. February 17th, we'll have our initial search committee meeting for new president of Tennessee THEC. As you know, I think we talked about previously, Bob Bell has announced his intent to leave at the end of this fiscal year. So that process is now well underway. we're using the search firm of Greenwood Asher, who worked with us at East Tennessee. Really seems to be a good fit, a good group of people, and was very helpful for us in identifying potential candidates. But we'll be doing a similar type of search at THEC as we did at ETSU. The hope is that the week of April 9th, we'll have this meeting of the committee that will narrow down to a group of 10 to 12, and then the way Greenwood Asher advises us and what worked well at ETSU, surprisingly well. I was very skeptical about this, but we'll meet on Monday, I think April 9th, and then 2 or 3 days later we'll have 10 to 12 candidates coming in for interviews with that search committee. It happens very quickly. And then that following week, we will have the finalists, the 3 or so finalists will be on campus for what at ETSU was just an incredibly grueling day of interviews. Started at 7:30 in the morning and didn't finish until about 9 that evening. So it was but we'll do that at THEC and hopefully be in a position soon thereafter, and by late April certainly, to have made a recommendation to the board for a new president to Tennessee Tech that we would expect would be able to come in and assume their duties at least by the beginning of the fall term. One other search that will pick up about that time will be Tennessee State University. You know, we have an interim president, Dr. Portia Shields, who is doing a great job at TSU. But is not in a position to be a permanent president. She's there for an interim assignment, and later this spring we'll initiate that search process with the hope of having a new president identified and ready to come in. Probably the first of next year would be the expectation. So we're very busy and busy enough, and I hope we're as busy as we have to be for some time in terms of searches. But that is really occupying a lot of our attention as we try to make good judgments about leadership on campuses. And let me just say one other thing, and then I'll stop. Rich, you, Russ, the whole team here who worked so hard putting together the operating budget recommendations and the capital budget recommendations. As a system, and Joe can speak for himself, but I'm confident he shares this. We really appreciate what y'all have done and the effort you have made. We're all just kind of sitting on pins and needles, waiting to see what the governor will recommend in the budget, and that will happen here. Certainly by Monday afternoon, late afternoon, we'll know what the recommendation is going to be. But based on what the comments have been, based on what he said, based on the case that THEC has laid out to them for capital and operating budget improvements, we're very hopeful that this is going to be a good year for higher education budgets, which would be a very pleasant experience given the string of the last several years, which have not been so good. So thank y'all for what you do very much. So, Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
All right. Thank you for the report. I do want to take this moment to commend you for the search and just to thank you because as representing the 1st Congressional District, I got a lot of comments and I got calls, and one of the biggest compliments I was given about your process was that it was so transparent. They got to see the applicants in person. They could watch the whole day, the whole grueling days worth of Q&As going on, and it was also transparent, and I appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Right, Dr. DiPietro.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I, along with all the previous speakers, would echo my pleasure and the fact that we're very pleased that the TBR and Chancellor Morgan had the wisdom to provide you this appointment, President Nolan. And Brian, we're very committed to working with you. We look forward to it, and we're already reaching out trying to come up to visit with you. More importantly, we have a special touch with this man because he's an alumnus of our institution, and he cites mentors that are iconic at our place, like Bob Levy and Grady Bogue. So best of luck, and if we can help you in any way, we look forward to it, and we think you're a great fit for Tennessee, and we'll be in touch. I promise you. We have a number of things to cover. Number one, I would echo John's comments about the fact that THEC and this commission listened to our recommendations and then, better yet, hung meat on the bones, as you might say, and came up with recommendations that went forward to the administration that are helpful to us. And we're actually at a point where if we don't see some help, either we're going to have to, again, look at this whole fee structure situation or compromise our quality. So it was very, very important that the staff and Rich and THEC and the commission supported our approach to you and several times saying we need your help on not only the operating side of the house. You helped us with non-formula, but you also helped us with looking at a new approach toward capital outlay that we think is fruitful. And we're on pins and needles, too, in that regard. So, but it's hopeful. And that's very, very important because the past few years there hadn't been as much hope. And so, again, thank you very much. I'd like to talk primarily about our strategic planning effort because we're in the throes of that right now, and we were going to do that in a single year, and we will get it done in a single year. And we're at the last bit of doing our data collection and gathering. We launched this in July, and then we'll be moving into a phase of drafting the actual plan, and then we have plans to get this plan in the hands of the Board of Trustees for approval in June. And it really defined the future of the University of Tennessee system, provide us a roadmap for 5, 6, 7 years, and it'll define the role of the system as part of that process too. So people know what systems do and people know what campuses and institutes do. And perhaps just to give you a flavor of that process and where we're at, we have 12 task forces. We have a steering committee, and they've charged 12 different task forces to take a look at specifics to essentially flesh this plan out. The hardest part's going to be after this, and that will be digesting everything they've done as groups or committees into a workable single-page plan. I mean, our goal is, can you make it 2 pages or less? And that's a real challenge. So we've got task forces that include student affairs and student experience, academic affairs, faculty affairs, staff affairs, research, external affairs and communications, system-wide support, and systems to do that, leadership and management, outcome impact measures and reporting, much more complicated than you'd ever expect, facilities and infrastructure, employer of choice from the standpoint of trying to look at our people and how do you get there, and how do we drive new investments, new revenues, and entrepreneurial spirit at the University of Tennessee. So that effort's really up and going. It's been very exciting. If you've ever been through strategic planning at a university, you realize we're at that point where Keith Carver often comes to me and goes, "Man, the air's bumpy." And it's typically bumpy at this point because people often on these task forces want to know, what's Joe want? And I want their plan and their input. I don't want to tell them what I want yet. We gave them a charge that said, we're all about education, about discovery, and we're about outreach and connectivity. Now you all come up with an approach, and we've given them matrices, and I want their thoughts. And we'll have a very engaged process. We'll be going out to constituents both across the system, obviously, but external constituents as we draft our plan. And we've touched a lot of people already with visits to the campuses, listening sessions as part of the process. And this plan should come out, if we do it the right way, and we think we will, where people aren't surprised by what's in it because we've had the opportunity to get it in front of them and they've been able to see it. And there's a web page off of our site that you can take a look at it if you'd like. Our biofuels initiative, switching gears, is in its last year of funding by the state. And that has been a success. We've done all 4 phases of that project. It's a cellulosic ethanol facility in East Tennessee. And, we indicated when we received those funds, and we were grateful for them, that we would, one, develop the acreage of switchgrass, and we've done that. We have 6,000 acres in the ground. That we would be proving principle in a refinery, and we're doing that right now. In fact, we're generating fuel from alcohol in Von Orr, Tennessee, and we're actually burning it in our E85 cars on campus. The third step was to look at R&D, and we're in the throes of that like you can't believe. We think some of the co-products out of the plant will actually be worth more than the alcohol, like carbon fiber. And the last phase was get us on a path to commercialization. And that's where we're at right now. That's not real easy, but we're hopeful, and we're prepared to move forward in that area in the next 6 to 8 months. And, I would say that one of our biggest successes in the past year, and we concluded this in December, was the fact that we completed our campaign for Tennessee, which was a $1 billion campaign. There are only about 20 universities in the United States that have exceeded a $20 billion campaign. Because of the loyal friends and donors that we have, I'm happy to report that we raised $1.3 billion over that campaign. That's very, very good news. We'll be looking at the next campaign pretty soon, so you'll have to stay tuned for that. It's probably a year to 18 months out. With that, Mr. Chairman, it concludes my report.
Well, thank you so much for that report. Congratulations on all of that. We're now ready for our action items, and we're going to pick up the pace just a little bit because I know we have a couple of commission members that need to leave a little early, so we want to get through the action items. We'll now ask Mr. Mike Krause if he'll come up and talk with us about Move On When Ready Act, ACT benchmark topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rhoda, members of the committee, the commission. We covered this morning in the work session, but this is an action item, so we do want to provide some brief background before taking action on setting a benchmark ACT and SAT score for the Move On When Ready Act. The Move On When Ready Act was a piece of legislation passed during the previous General Assembly. It seeks to allow exemplary high school students who have achieved a range of requirements to move into higher education at that time once they complete all curricular requirements. And Section 4 of the bill charges THEC with the responsibility of setting SAT and SAT benchmarks. Based on pretty wide-ranging research, we came to the conclusion that we would recommend a 27 ACT English, a 27 ACT Math, a 610 SAT Math, and a 590 SAT Writing. This recommendation was based on analysis of student performance and how it predicts ACT scores versus success in credit-bearing courses in college. It is an action item, and staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve this item.
Motion. Second.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve this item. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. We're now ready for our post-secondary education authorization, items 1, 2, and 3. Authorization of new institutions and approval of new programs and conditional approval of new programs. We'll have Ms. Christina Coleman.
Hi, good afternoon. Chairman White, Dr. Rhoda, and Commission members. As our first action item, the Post-Secondary Advisory Committee has recommended that institutions listed in Section 1B1 and the new programs listed in Section 1B2 be granted temporary authorization and approval, and that the new programs listed in Section 1B3 be granted conditional approval.
All right, thank you. Any questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion as such recommended. Okay, a motion second to approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. We'll now go to item number 4, which is withdrawal of rules from Attorney General.
Yes, and just as an information item, we held our first workshop for new institutions at our most recent commission meeting to kind of give them a heads up for what to expect from the regulatory process. And these workshops will be held after every quarterly commission meeting going forward. And so now I'd like to introduce Julie, who's going to introduce an action item regarding our rules.
Thank you.
And Christina, you made everybody at the training session sign a statement that they attended the training session, right?
We did.
I thought that was a great touch.
We wanted to make sure they knew they were there. So, good afternoon, Chairman, Dr. Rhoda, Commissioners. At the July meeting last year, the Commission voted to approve certain revisions to our 2008 rules and to send those to the Attorney General for the Attorney General's review. At the November meeting, I notified you all that the month previous, Chancellor Ellen Hobbs-Lyle had issued a memorandum in order in which she determined that the 2008 rulemaking proceeding was inconsistent with the Uniform Administrative Procedures Act, and therefore she declared the 2008 rules to be void and of no effect. On November 16th, the Tennessee Secretary of State, as a result of the Chancellor's decision and a subsequent Attorney General opinion, published the currently effective rules for non-exempt post-secondary educational institutions. So those are now the rules on the Secretary of State's website with a November 2011 date on the bottom of them. So the effect of all of this is that the revisions we sent to the Attorney General's office in July are actually amending rules that are no longer in effect. So to kind of tie everything up, we're asking, DPSA is recommending that you vote to withdraw the rules from the Attorney General's consideration, and we'll begin the rulemaking process anew.
So moved. I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to withdraw the rules that we submitted to the Attorney General. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our last action item is, I want to ask Dr. Russ Deaton to come up and talk with us about the revised budgets for 2011 and 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rhoda, members of the Commission. Tab 1C provides a very high-level overview of the operating budgets for each institution. These are approved twice a year by the University of Tennessee System and the Board of Regents, of course. The first one is the July 1st cycle, and the second one are the ones you see here that are a revision. We call them the October 31 budgets. As an overview, the expenditure analysis is consistent with prior years, not a whole lot of change in the expenditure patterns of the dollars. This being the first year post federal ARRA, you do see a continued shift away from state appropriations towards tuition and fees. This is a pattern we've seen for about a decade now, a continued shift. One thing I would note, though, the budgets do allow us to come to some conclusions about the way the costs have been structured over time. The systems and campuses deserve commendation for keeping costs contained. There has been a shift to students. Their costs undoubtedly have gone up, but the cost of delivery has more or less been kept in check. That is a summary, Mr. Chairman. Staff recommendations for approval and transmission to the Commissioner of FNA.
All right, thank you. Per the recommendation from staff, do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Commission approve the FY 11-12 October 31 revised operating budgets, authorize the Executive Director to make appropriate technical adjustments if necessary, and transmit the revised operating budgets with the Commission's actions and comments to the Department of Finance and Administration for their review and
All right, we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you for that motion and second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right, thank you so much. We're now ready for our first informational item, and we've moved the Audit Committee report up to first on the list. Ask Ms. Ann, she'll come up. Ms. Ann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rhoda, and members of the Commission. The purpose of this report, and this is under tab 2F in your notebook, is to provide a brief summary on the Audit Committee meeting that we held back in December. Typically, we've held Audit Committee meetings during the THEC work session, but because we've had several new members join our Audit Committee over the last year, and the fact that we've been kind of wanting to go over some things in detail, we decided to have a type of orientation and work session. So we spent several hours that day going over a number of things and enabled members to be able to ask questions and us provide information to them. We were fortunate that all 5 members of the Audit Committee were able to be there that day. Claude Presnell, who is our chair, was there and representing THEC, and Robert White and Sharon Hayes representing THEC, along with Sammy Stewart representing TSAC, and Greg Turner representing Commissioner Imkes. He's the designee for Mr. Imkes. We also had a number of THEC and TSAC staff who participated, and I really appreciate their help in coordinating this effort and participating in the meeting. That included Dr. Rhoda, Peter Abernathy, Russ Deaton, O.W. Higley, and Jason Cavender. I just kind of want to hit some of the highlights of the things that we covered during this time period. We went over the responsibilities. There are several documents that outline responsibilities of the Audit Committee. And we also discussed my role in relation to work at THEC and TSAC as well as to the committee. And I would like to point out for anyone relatively new in the audience today that our role is dealing with the operations of THEC and TSAC, that each system, that UT and the Board of Regents have their own internal audit functions and perform the audits related to their institutions. So we're not responsible for those types of audits. The staff from THEC and TSAC presented overviews of programs and operations within THEC and TSAC, including going over organization charts and programs that they both operate. This enabled members to get into some details and get up to speed on some current topics within each agency. We reviewed the draft 2011 TSAC financial statements, and this is something that we had wanted to spend a little time on, going over the fine points of what the statements are made up of and why they're reported the way they are, as well as how that information is coordinated along with THEC's financial information in the state's comprehensive annual financial report. Staff presented information on THEC and TSAC's budget summaries as well to kind of see the numbers involved with operating both agencies. We went over an item that you've heard mentioned here before at the meeting related to an accounting issue in the loans program related to averted claims. And we went over that in detail with them and explaining how this occurred and where we are in that process. And the analysis for all 6 years that were involved in that is complete, and staff submitted the information and request to the USDOE for the final 3 years. And we know that the USDOE is currently reviewing that. I believe the staff has gotten some questions and has been in contact with USDOE, so we're hoping that the fact that they have already been in touch with us is a good indication that they'll complete their review fairly quickly. The numbers are outlined there for your information as to how much each year is being requested to be transferred from the federal fund to the agency's operating fund, and it totals about $14.7 million. So we're pretty proud of getting this issue wrapped up. I am working on a kind of a summary and follow-up report with staff, and that will be forthcoming in the near future. A couple of action items that we had included just approving the minutes from the prior audit committee meeting that was held November 18th of 2010, and that's in your packet there as an information item. Also, one thing that the committee is required to do is to review and approve the agency's risk assessment, and THEC and TSAC do a combined risk assessment that is submitted to the Comptroller's Office and to the Department of Finance and Administration. So we were able to talk about that and spend some time going over new additions and things related to different things within THEC and TSAC. And the Audit Committee did vote to approve that, and that risk assessment was submitted before the deadline in last December. Just one update, State Audit is working to release their fiscal year 11 audit report for TSAC, and so we anticipate that coming out fairly soon. So that is my report. I'll be happy to take questions.
Have any questions? All right. If not, thank you so much.
I want to thank Claude for chairing the committee, and actually, Sharon, you and Robert for being on the committee, but Ann in particular, because what she described in a very matter-of-fact way is really a lot of it very tedious.
Oh, yes.
Trudging kind of work. So
no doubt
thank
about
you very
that.
much.
All right, we're now ready for our next informational item, and it will be the academic program review.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is another item that was covered in depth at the work session. However, I think it is productive to at least do kind of a 10,000-foot view of this for those that may have not been able to attend. What we're doing today really is taking a holistic view of the health of our academic programs in the state, from cradle to full maturity, including the new programs and the mature programs. It's an important thing to do because we've set pretty ambitious completion goals, and those students that we hope will graduate and move into the workforce have to graduate with a degree in something. And so these programs are the something, and we're going to examine their health real quickly. First and foremost, take a look at the components of the review, and as I stated, it's pretty comprehensive in nature. We take a look at the new programs and the terminations in the previous year. We evaluate those programs that have only been in existence for less than 5 years. We then evaluate mature programs, both to take a look at which ones are possibly coming in under performance thresholds, but also to examine which programs are successful at the institutions and get a sense of how that institution's mission differentiation is being illustrated by their productivity. And then finally, we do a qualitative review of those programs that can seek accreditation and determine if they have not achieved accreditation, what are possibly the factors contributing to that. On the whole, it was a very active year in program activity. As you will see, we had a large number of new programs. You'll find this in tab 2A in your binder. The predominant activity, however, was beginning certificate programs of less than 24 credit hours, so this happened exclusively at the Board of Regents level. This consists of really two different things. The first is a set of new certificates that were intended to encompass the general education core curriculum. These were 41 credit hour certificates. We had one at each of our 13 community colleges. And then the remainder of the certificates represent a range of responses to local workforce demands and vocational development. There has been termination activity, as we discussed this morning. Both systems have taken a look at degrees at all levels and, when appropriate, have made the decision to consolidate or terminate those programs. Regarding our new programs, the state at first does look to be a bit glum, and that is that about 60% are not meeting the benchmarks that were determined in that program's proposal. However, what I would say is that the counterbalance to that is the vast majority, even if they are not making those self-determined projections, have enough students in the enrollment pipeline. We believe they will be productive in the next few years. You'll also see that this trend of not meeting benchmarks remains consistent across both systems and sectors, with about 63% at UT, 61% at the Board of Regents four-year institutions, and 63% at the Board of Regents two-year community colleges. However, not meeting benchmarks, the one point we do want to illustrate is most of these program projections, they are reliant on the revenue of those students who would be attending in order to fulfill the FTEs. So we would add a word of caution as new programs are being developed that those projections be developed with a realistic viewpoint of how they might actually play out. Our mature programs are monitored up against nationally established guidelines, which are, we look for an average of 10 graduates in a 5-year period, an average of 10 graduates in a 5-year period of bachelor's degrees and associate degrees, an average of 5 graduates in a 5-year period at the master's level, and an average of 3 graduates in a 5-year period at the doctoral level. And the basic picture on this is we had 104 programs statewide that did come in at that low producing threshold. But one thing I also want to illustrate, if you take a look at the master's programs that you see in Appendix C, as President DiPietro noted earlier, productivity is not the whole picture here. And we have, of the 19 master's programs that are low producing, 10 of those are STEM. So clearly, those are high priority areas for our state, and we do look at productivity as a portion of their success, but not all of their success. And in regards to the doctoral programs, 6 of the programs that are going to be retained, 3 of those are STEM. So again, we are trying to present the whole picture in this case. And then you also see here the productive programs. And these, I think this is a really good analysis we instituted last year. It gives you a sense of how each institution's academic inventory, what's the most successful, where are their students gravitating. Taking a look at this, you would see pretty quickly that education is a high-performing degree field at all levels and at a range of institutions. Both at the graduate and bachelor's level, we see a wide array of the most productive programs being in teacher preparation. Other good examples, though, for instance, ETSU's health science emphasis is clearly borne out in their productivity numbers, and we see that at other institutions as well. This is a collaborative document, and so we take yet another chance to thank Dr. Short, Dr. High, and their staff. When we send out those low-producing templates, that initiates a flurry of activity that takes place during the summer and the fall. We appreciate that activity, and if you were to, the takeaway from this is that the state of our academic programs is generally very sound. Our institutions and our systems have responded to the demands of CCTA, and their academic programs really appear to be on a good course. And with that, I would take any questions.
Thank you. Questions? None.
Thank you, Chairman White.
All right. We're now ready for our next item, and that will be an update from the 2012 Lottery Scholarship Annual Report, and that will be given by Mr. David Wright. Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, that's Thomas Sanford.
I'm going to sub in for a minute.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rhoda, members of the committee. I'll make my comments brief since I presented in detailed presentation this morning in the work session. But basically, we provided, and it's in Section 2B of your booklet, a special report on grant and loan forgiveness programs as part of TELS. And the report looked at the students who are participating in the programs, their success and progression, and their demographic characteristics. Some of the highlights from the report are that the dual enrollment program has been extremely successful. It's experienced tremendous growth, exponential growth, and those students are highly academically prepared and are highly successful in college. And additionally, several of the loan forgiveness programs are reaching out to some of our most critical need areas as defined by our agenda, our public agenda in the state. So with that, I'll take any questions you may have, and there's also a copy of the report available on our website.
Thank you, sir. Questions? No, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, we're now ready for our next item. It will be the UT Center for Business and Economic Research Post-Secondary Progression Study. And I think David Wright's going to introduce the presenter.
I will indeed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rhoda, members of the Commission. Before I introduce Celeste Carruthers, I'd like to take a moment to, Dr. Rhoda introduced our new staff members a while ago, and we had an intern who just arrived. And Sarah Kittrell, would you stand up? Sarah's back there in the red dress. She is a master's student at Vanderbilt in higher education, and she's from the Dallas area, and is working with us as a practicum student for academic credit this semester. And doing a great job. She's working, by the way, for those of you that are on the Master Plan Steering Committee, she's working on developing the Master Plan, I should say, public agenda progress report, sort of the 36,000-foot view of what effect is all this policy change having on our bottom line results. So, an important job. Okay, well, ever since 2007, we have had a very close and productive relationship with the University of Tennessee's Center for Business and Economic Research, Dr. Bill Fox and Company, and it started with a series of reports called School to Work, where we looked at where Tennessee higher ed graduates were working and what they were earning given their degree level and their field of study. And it's continued on through the supply and demand studies for teachers, for our master planning effort, and just to give you a little bit of a teaser, right now in the works we're designing a series of annual feedback reports for institutions so that any institution can go out and look at the students who graduated from the university or the community college in that particular year, the employment rate in Tennessee, and the average earnings based upon field of study. And so it's an ongoing relationship that continues to this very day. They are also hosting the longitudinal data system over there at Sieber, so we rely on them quite a bit. Celeste Carruthers is a fairly new member of the staff. She is a assistant professor of economics at the University of Tennessee. She has her PhD from the University of Florida, so she's obviously able to look at issues from multiple points of view. So that's a good thing if you're an economist, I think. Celeste has worked on two studies that I wanted to talk about. One, just very briefly, because Thomas spent so much time on the lottery report this morning. Celeste has actually done a study with Don Bruce, who also is a member of the Sieber staff, looking at the lottery scholarships' impact on students' decision of whether and where to attend college and effect on student progression, completion, and those things. So if she could give us the 5-minute elevator speech on that, she's going to do that. And then the presentation that you see here on the slide screen is actually our agenda item, and that is, she'll segue into this. And we really asked for a study that compares students who drop out from college to those who persist. And what you're going to see today is kind of a work in progress. We're not quite done, but I think it's very interesting, and it looks at some of the predicates of students who succeed and those who drop out, and then what happens to them once they do drop out, where we find them in the Tennessee economy. So with that as an introduction, I'll turn it over to Celeste Carruthers, and thank you for being here.
Sorry. Thank you, David, Dr. Rhoda, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, everyone in attendance for having me here. As David said, I'm going to give you the 5-minute elevator speech for a study that I have with a colleague at the University of Tennessee, Don Bruce. He's also in CBER, about the effect of the HOPE scholarship, just HOPE specifically, not other TEL scholarships at this point, on the likelihood that students go to college, what type of college they choose to go to, how long they persist in college, and whether they have to work while enrolled and how much they earn while enrolled. And essentially some of the high points of our findings are that for students who are just eligible for the scholarship, so these are students who have really just barely met the ACT eligibility criteria and other criteria, it tends to increase the likelihood they go to college by about 2 to 3 percentage points. That's a pretty meaningful jump. It tends to have some of them substitute out of 2-year schools and into 4-year schools. So for students who kind of would have gone to a community college in the absence of the HOPE scholarship, they tend to favor 4-year schools with that financial aid. And for these marginally eligible students, they're also much less likely to work while they're students in college, and they tend to earn a lot less. So that's suggestive that the scholarship kind of eases some financial or cash flow constraints that would have led these students to work in its absence. For HOPE scholars in general, not just these marginally eligible students, we find that the scholarship kind of increases the length of time they stay in college, has less of an effect on their earnings and their employment behavior while they're in college, but to date has no significant impact on the likelihood that they receive a 4-year bachelor's degree. So we're looking at 4-year students at this point. Future work, we'd like to look at 5th-year graduation rates and the effect of the scholarship on kind of other student populations. So that is a brief thumbnail sketch. The paper is currently under review by a very good journal. We hope to see it in print someday soon. David?
Could you explain for a quasi-lay person like myself how you did this, how you determined the substitution effect from the 2-year, 4-year sector?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we took as our kind of baseline sample all students who had graduated from Tennessee public high schools between, I believe, 2006 and 2009. That's the spring graduation year. And then we just estimated the likelihood that they were found in any college in Tennessee, the likelihood that they were found in a 2-year community college versus a 4-year college. And we compared students who kind of just met the ACT criteria for the HOPE scholarship compared to students who just missed the ACT criteria. And we're really talking about a margin of inches here, margin of decimal points in the ACT variable. And for students who just met this criteria, they were less likely to show up in a 2-year college and more likely to show up in a 4-year university in Tennessee. So it's been a lot of fun and a very interesting line of inquiry, and we're looking forward to seeing where it ends up in the academic literature. But my primary objective in coming here today, and I want to again just thank everyone for having me out here, is to tell you about this study, which at this point is titled Post-Secondary Progression and the Transition from College to Career in Tennessee. The document that you have as your information item is going to be included as a chapter in our center's Economic Report to the Government, 2012, and it's based on some related work, some of which was funded by the Gates Foundation, and some of which is going to develop into this kind of study on higher education dropouts versus completers that we're finishing up right now for THEC. And I should say this is joint work with my colleagues at CBER, University of Tennessee, Bill Fox, Matt Murray, and Angela Thacker. So our research that I'm talking about today is really guided by 2 overarching questions. The first is, what student characteristics are related to or predictive of college completion, and then shortly after college, employment and earnings. And then second, what are the short-term returns in terms of employment outcomes to college persistence and completion. And in order to pursue these questions, we're going to merge kind of 3 finely grained data sets. The first is provided by THEC on the characteristics of students in 2-year and 4-year public institutions in the state entering in 2002, 2003, and I need to emphasize at this point that our results are pertinent to first-time freshmen. So these are the more traditional college students. Future work would really like to look at other non-traditional students, older students, students in the Tennessee Technology Centers and so forth. But for the time being, we take these first-time freshmen and we match their permanent addresses, their pre-college addresses, to characteristics of their home neighborhoods that we draw from the United States Census 2000 edition, which is closest to the year that they entered college. And then we identify the students that were found working in the state of Tennessee about 7 to 8 years after entering college. And these employment and earnings data have been provided by the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. Should also qualify that these earnings data cover just the Tennessee employees that are covered by unemployment insurance, which represents about 89% of all workers in the state. So some limitations there. First, I'm going to spell out a thumbnail sketch of profile of four-year college students in the 2003 cohort by whether or not they graduated or how long they stayed if they didn't graduate. For some definitions are in order. A single-term non-completer in this study is someone who stayed in college no more than 25% of the normal time to degree. So that would be 1 academic year for a 4-year student, 1 semester for a 2-year student. And we see that among these single-term non-completers, about 30% are non-white. They average 21 on the ACT. They go to college 58 miles from home. Their home areas are 32% rural, and the median income at their home area is $37,900. Multi-term non-completers tend to stay more than 25% normal time to degree in college, but they nonetheless leave without a degree. And they kind of resemble the single-term non-completers, except they're a little bit less likely to come from a rural area, and the median income is higher at their home neighborhoods. And then finally, bachelor's degree recipients tend to have higher ACT scores. Interestingly, they go farther away from home for college, and they come from less rural and more affluent areas as determined by the 2000 census. So those are our 4-year college students. Our 2-year college students, I have a couple degree outcomes here. Some of them earn associate's degree, some earn bachelor's degree, a small number earn both in the time period that we observe them. Some of the same patterns tend to hold in that ACT scores are higher for degree recipients, and at least for bachelor's degree recipients, the median income is higher at home than it is for non-completers. But in terms of urbanicity, at 2-year schools, students come from areas that are completers come from areas that are similar in terms of urbanicity than non-completers. So let's turn next to graduation and time to degree. We find that for students entering 2-year colleges in these two cohorts, only about 4% receive an associate's degree within 2 years, or 100% of the normal time to degree. But thereafter, the frequency of degree receipt just kind of keeps increasing rather steadily. So degree receipt for 2-year students is really spread out over a fairly long window of time. And as we kind of refresh this data with newer waves, I expect we'll see that trend continue. For 4-year college students, degree receipt is a little bit more expeditious. About 20% of them receive a bachelor's degree within 4 years, but just 1 year later, within 150% of the normal time to degree, almost half of 4-year college students have received a bachelor's degree, and thereafter, it does not increase much. The rate of bachelor's degree receipt is still only 53% 8 years after starting college. So that is to say, 4-year students, their degree receipt is just much more concentrated around that 6-year mark, rather than spread out as it is for 2-year students. So this kind of begs the question, and our report will talk about this a bit more. How close are non-completers to graduation? At this time, we can't kind of check off their degree requirements explicitly, but we can identify how they measure up in terms of credits earned and semesters enrolled. And they're fairly close to graduation when you consider graduation to be in terms of minimum degree requirements, 120 credits, about 8 semesters. Multi-term non-completers accumulate about 90 semesters and attend about 90 credits, and attend about 7 semesters. But as we've already shown, bachelor's degree receipt, these 4-year schools, tends to happen around the 6-year mark, and so by that benchmark, non-completers only persist about 2/3 as long as their peers who leave with bachelor's degrees. And I have some figures to that effect. By construction, single-term non-completers do not accumulate a lot of credit hours. That's what we're looking at here. The blue bars represent the 2002 cohort's average credit hours, the red bar, the 2003 cohort. Extended non-completers complete about 90 credit hours. compared to bachelor's degree recipients, which is closer to 160, about 158. Similarly, extended non-completers enroll for 7 semesters, so in terms of the 100% the normal time to degree, they're almost there, really just 1 semester shy of 4 years. Yet bachelor's degree recipients tend to take about 10 or more semesters on average to receive their degree. Turning next to post-college employment and earnings, comparing degree recipients versus non-degree recipients. This will give us a sense of the economic returns to college completion in Tennessee. And intuitively, we find that 7 years after starting college, degree recipients are more likely to be found working in Tennessee. And among those who are working in Tennessee, they earn higher incomes, higher wages. I should note here that we limited this portion of the analysis to students who had left college by 2009, or the year that we're examining wages. So these aren't confounded by students who are still enrolled and working part-time. Some figures to demonstrate that pattern. Again, the blue bars represent the 2002 cohort. This time we're looking at the likelihood that a single-term non-completer in 2002 was found working in Tennessee in 2009, 7 years after starting college. 2 salient conclusions here emerge. First of all, degree recipients who started in 2-year schools, regardless of which type of degree they earn, are much more likely to be working, to be found working, than non-completers. And also you see across the board, the 2003 cohort's really worse off in terms of employment outcomes. And that's a consequence of the 08-09 recession in large part. The students who started college 1 year later were more exposed to the recession upon leaving, and we see that borne out here. These are average earnings by completion and degree status for students who started in 2-year schools 02 or 03. Again, degree recipients earn much more than non-degree recipients, about $10,000 in dollars that are just normalized to 2010, I think, so not really different from what they were in 2009, actually. And that's a pretty large gap. That's a pretty large sheepskin effect in terms of degree receipt for just 1 year of earnings. Finally, turning to 4-year students in these 2 cohorts, and the same pictures, but again focusing on 4-year students. The students who earn bachelor's degrees are somewhat more likely to be found working in Tennessee than the 2 categories of non-completers illustrated at left, and they earn about $10,000 more in 2009 than non-completers. So everything I've shown you so far has been descriptive analysis, and we can gain a lot from descriptive analysis, but a substantial portion of the report is also devoted to some regression analysis just to make sure that there are not other observable student characteristics that are confounding these descriptive differences. And we find in general that they are not. First, we estimate the relationship between observable student features and college completion, controlling for many observable student features, the census data, the THEC data on ACT scores, and so forth. And we find that for each additional point on the ACT, the likelihood of degree receipt increases 1 to 2% depending on which sample of students we're looking at, and 2 to 3% for 4-year students. And the students from low-income neighborhoods before college, kind of those socioeconomic challenges from before college, carry forward into their college outcomes. We find that students from these neighborhoods were significantly less likely to receive a degree by the end of our sample window. Received a bachelor's degree, I should clarify. Okay, the similar regression analysis for employment and earnings outcomes 7 years after starting college. This time I'm just limiting it to the 2002 cohort to give them plenty of time to get finished and out of college. And now, in addition to observable student characteristics, we're controlling for the type of degree one received and how fast they received it. So this is going to really get at kind of the returns to degree completion statistically. Again, we see the ACT points are indicative of future success, but by a fairly small margin, I have to acknowledge. Each additional ACT point increases 2009 earnings by $137. This was precisely estimated, but the magnitude is not really blowing me over. We do see a much larger gap in terms of gender, males earn more, and we do see a racial gap, white individuals earn more. And there's an SES gap, students from low-income neighborhoods earn significantly less. So all these characteristics were determined well before college, or at least in the middle of high school in the case of ACT scores, but completing college is a voluntary process on the part of students, and despite pre-existing student characteristics, completing college can subsequently increase earnings. And that is exactly what we find. Explain what we're looking at here. Looking at the short-term returns to degree completion in terms of 2009 earnings in Tennessee. Students who completed an associate's degree within 100% of normal time, 2 years, earned about $8,000 more than extended non-completers. So that's the comparison group here, extended non-completers. Students who earned an associate's degree in a bit longer earned about as much more as extended non-completers, and students who earned an associate's within 4 years earned about $11,000 more than extended non-completers. I'll discuss this pattern more in a bit. The real prize went to bachelor's degree receipts who did so within 4 years. They earned about $13,000 more than extended non-completers. Students who earned a bachelor's degree in a little bit longer, about 6 years, earned more than extended non-completers, but not quite as much as the students who got out in 4 years. So this is a kind of a thought-provoking little pattern. Why is the labor market rewarding students who took longer to get an associate's degree? And we believe it's because there are, in two-year community colleges, there are a lot of part-time students. That's why they take so long to finish their degree. And they're working at the same time as they're going to school. So these students tend to be a little bit older. They're more likely to have been working, accumulated some human capital. Their income is already outpacing their classmates in school. Subsequently, when they graduate, even though it takes a little bit longer, their income is higher as well. So what we do next is we break the sample into a lot of different subsamples, depending on where students started, a 2-year or 4-year school, and how they left, either with or without a degree. And then we estimate the effect of an additional semester in college on earnings in 2009. Really kind of break it out a bit. So this is really interesting. For each additional semester in college, non-completers who start in 2-year colleges earn about $668 more. That's statistically significant, as judged by the little asterisk there. Students who started in a 2-year and transferred, for each additional semester in college, earn almost $1,000 more. Students who started in 4-year colleges but did not transfer, an additional semester has no real bearing on their 2009 earnings. This is where it gets interesting. Students who started in a 2-year college, left with an associate's degree, for each additional semester, controlling for a number of other student factors, whether or not they're part-time, their age, different census categories from their home before college, each additional semester actually decreases earnings by $531, and we see that decrease in earnings actually grows a little bit for students who started in a 2-year and transferred, students who started in a 4-year college and completed with likely a bachelor's degree. So there are a couple different things going on here, one of which likely is the fact that completers who earn a degree but take longer to do so have a little bit less time in the labor market until we observe them in 2009. So they might still be earning that entry-level wage. But we're not the first researchers to find this pattern, and the prevailing theory is that additional time in college can be a negative signal to employers because it could be reflective of bad grades, making up classes, switching majors several times, not making up one's mind. Whereas for students who can't finish a degree, an additional semester in college can be a good signal, indicative of accumulated skills and so forth. And the mayor's not here anymore, but he was talking about the sheepskin effects. I think we can also tell college students, if you don't have a lot of confidence in high school students, I'm saying, if you don't have a lot of confidence in finishing college, it can still be a good signal to the labor market and a good habit to develop some human capital in college. It can increase earnings later on, even if you leave without a degree. But at the same time, the problem of staying in college an excessively long time can reduce earnings for other students who do leave with a degree.
Ask a question.
Yes.
Can you differentiate or estimate the effect of the fact that you're in the workforce for additional years, I mean, somebody who goes to work, say if they were a freshman in 2002, they go to work in 2005, we're measuring their earnings in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been employed for 4 years, versus someone whose first year in the workforce is 2009. That would seem to me to make a big difference.
Yeah, that's absolutely one of the mechanisms we kind of want to tease out. And there's a couple different ways we could do that. We could just directly control for how long we observe someone in the labor force. Also, we can follow up with later and later earnings data and see if kind of the differential in earnings between students who left college early versus didn't kind of stays that wide, or if it converges or even reverses.
You got to believe it converges and reverses, but it would be interesting to see.
Yeah, but if I could go back a bit, I think it's there. Yep. Just remind you that single-term non-completers in a four-year school, they were only in school for no more than a year. They had much longer in the workforce than these bachelor's degree recipients, and even though we're measuring earnings in the same year, they earn about $10,000 less on average. This is a big report. It's going to have a lot of detail in it, but I want to highlight some of the conclusions that I've reviewed today. First, ACT scores, this proxy of cognitive ability, and proxies of socioeconomic status seem to be very predictive of college completion, earnings, and employment later on. And as I said here, these socioeconomic challenges before college can lead to weaker completion and labor market outcomes down the road. Also, there are meaningful and significant short-term returns to college completion, so earning a degree should be a priority for students who can. But for students who do not earn a degree, there are returns to staying in college as long as feasible. But then finally, for those who do earn a degree, conditioning on the sheepskin effects that they're already going to enjoy out in the workforce, staying in college an excessively long time can send a bad signal to employers. There's lots of other topics that we could explore in future work. Importantly, the returns to education for non-traditional students there at the bottom, I think, would be of most interest. Yes?
I'm interested in the non-completers from the standpoint of extended non-completers, and you mentioned that they, on average, have about 90 hours worth of credit compared to a bachelor's degree. So in a tradition of 120 hours.
They're pretty close.
Yeah, maybe. My question is, do you know, they are in just pure hours, but if they bounced around and then a history major, a biology major decided they wanted to be a physicist, and then they may not be. So my question to you is, do you have any sense of that piece of it?
I do not yet. I'm actually just starting a project looking at college majors in these data. I don't have a sense yet, but that's the one piece we could identify. We probably couldn't run down their graduation checklist and say, who has met their humanities requirement and so forth, but we can identify switches in majors or extended periods of undeclared majors.
Because if you want to ramp up completion, if they're 90 hours and they've been a history major their whole time, that's a whole different story.
Admit them to law school and then it'd be okay.
Based on,
could you go back to the slide on gender, race, and neighborhood? I assume that's cumulative in the
this is actually
progression in terms of the deficit.
This is in terms of just total 2009 earnings.
If you're female, non-white, and in a bad neighborhood, you add all of those together so that you're $6,000
Indeed.
that's incredible. And your other chart showing 158 hours, did you say 158 hours?
That is the average.
The average?
Where are we?
So our 90-hour completer is only 68 hours away from finishing a 120-hour degree, right?
Compared to their classmates who finished with bachelor's degree in this case, that seems to be the case.
They're doing 150 hours. 30 more. You do have 2 semesters?
They're there because they want to be.
Is that the best deal they got going?
That's exactly right.
Yes, we do. Yes.
When you were talking about the average semester requirement, or average semesters for completer was 10 semesters, and average for multi-term non-completers were 7 semesters, how did you take into account students that attended summer courses?
Students that attended summer courses. At this point, these are just measuring fall and spring semesters, so this would be an understatement of kind of the total length of time spent in college.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
I just want to extend a few thanks, first of all, to Celeste and her colleagues at CBER. These are top-notch researchers. I don't think anybody has to be convinced of that. They're publishing in the best economics research journals in the country, and we appreciate them making their research accessible to us in language terms that we can understand. Also, they give us just some additional capacity to conduct research that our staff, we have more interesting questions sometimes than we have time to address, so we appreciate their being available to do that. I never want to let an opportunity like this go by without, though, thanking the folks that provide us with the data that underlies all of this. The Board of Regents, UT, TACUA especially. I've been around a little bit, and I don't think there's another state that's got a better relationship in terms of the sharing of data and just the incorporation of the private sector into what we're doing with the public agenda than what we have here. So I want to thank Claude, he was here, and Patrick Meldrum back here for your cooperation. And as well, the Department of Education and the State Board, see them beginning to come here. Really, it takes all of us to be able to present such a comprehensive picture, and our ability to work with these data are getting better and better the more data we get and the more time we have working with it. So thank you to all, and thank you for your good questions.
Thank you, Dick. All right, we're now ready for our next informational item, and it's the Gear Up, the CACG and Latino Student Success Grant Status Report Update. Mr. Troy Grant.
And first of all, Gary, welcome. Building Ralston as well, the chair of the State Board of Education, and other members of the board may be filtering in, so thank you for joining us.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Rhoda, members of the Commission, thank you for your time today. We're just going to provide you a brief update regarding the closeout of the 2005 Tennessee Gear Up Grant, along with an update on the Tennessee College Access and Success Network and the Lumina Latino Student Success Grant THEC received in the fall. First, just an overview. As many of you will be aware, in 2005, Tennessee received a state Gear Up grant from the U.S. Department of Education. Gear Up is a federal program that is really the core mission of the program is to increase the number of students who are prepared to transition into and succeed in higher education. Tennessee's grant was a $3.5 million a year grant. It's a 6-year grant, again, started in 2005, ending in 2011. There are two major components to this grant program: statewide services and direct services. The statewide services included things like a college access campaign, media campaign, which we have reported to the Commission on various times over the last couple of years, and then also the college access web portal, collegefortn.org. The direct services, which was really kind of the heart of the grant program, focused in on 9 rural counties spread across the state. These counties, we provided 2 different populations resources. We always worked with, from 2005 on, 11th and 12th grade students each year of grant implementation. We also followed a cohort of students. Starting in the 7th grade in 2005, we followed them and provided interventions all the way through middle school and high school. Those students graduated from high school in May 2011 and have transitioned into higher education in fall 2011. So the interventions on the direct service level, they include things like we hired a site coordinator to coordinate all college access initiatives on the local level, ACT preparation, tutoring, mentoring, filling out the FAFSA, filling out college applications. We also provided professional development to school teachers, to counselors, to administrators. It really is a robust suite of resources and interventions we have provided over the last 6 years. As I mentioned, the grant ended in September 2011, and we submitted a final performance report to the U.S. DOE on December 21st of 2011. These are the 9 Gear Up direct service counties, just as a point of reference. So this is where we really did provide the really detailed, rigorous interventions directly to the students. This next slide in no way kind of gives you a complete picture of everything that this grant accomplished, but I wanted to kind of give you a 30,000-foot level kind of picture of the types of things that we did throughout the last 6 years. In our 9 direct service counties, we served nearly 17,000 students with the variety of interventions that I mentioned. Over the last 6 years, over 280,000 students have created accounts on collegefortn.org. 2,200 educators have also created accounts. The media campaign that was part of the program, we produced several commercials, radio ads, television ads that were viewed 83,000 times on the radio, heard rather, 83,000 times on the radio, viewed 7,600 times on TV. Also to note here, in our partnership with the Tennessee Broadcasters Association, this campaign, we were given over $3 million worth of free airtime by virtue of that partnership. Over the last 6 years, we have awarded $2.3 million in financial assistance to our graduating Gear Up students across the state. And going forward, the class of 2011, we will be providing these students with over $3 million in financial aid to help these students not only transition into higher education, but complete their associate's and baccalaureate degrees. Now, these are some of our results, and just to kind of frame this, these are our cohort students. So this is, again, the group that we followed starting in 7th grade who graduated this last May. The college going rate amongst these students was 57.6%. This is a 22% increase compared to our benchmark data at the beginning of the grant. We are really excited about these results. These are big deal results. Just to kind of put that into some kind of frame of reference, for the first time, compared to the previous year college going rate average across the state, our Gear Up counties surpassed the state college going rate for the first time. And to kind of zone in on some of the individual successes, Lake County, while a small county in northwest Tennessee, had a college going rate this last year of 93%. They more than doubled their college going rate over the last year. Union County, 64.7, Johnson County, 74.5, Meigs County, 58.1. This really speaks to the quality of work that is being done not just by THEC staff, but in each of these systems by the Gear Up staff who are implementing this program locally. At the heart of Gear Up is this kind of idea of sustainability, that once these federal funds are gone, what will happen, what will be in place so that these interventions, that these successes will be maintained over time. Just a couple of things just to note. At the beginning of the grant, on average, our school systems had 3 strategic partnerships that they had identified. At the end of the grant, that had increased to 15. So these are partnerships with the business community, with local higher ed institutions, with nonprofit organizations. And that kind of leads into this next piece, the direct service sustainability. ACT prep, dual enrollment, expansion, tutoring and mentoring. These interventions are being sustained through their strategic partnerships, these school systems partnerships, at little or no cost to the school itself. This really speaks to this, what will happen going forward now that the Gear Up grant has come to an end. Systemic cultural changes occurred at the local level per our third-party evaluators at the University of Tennessee. We've seen a cultural shift in these communities and what it means to go to college, understanding the value of higher education, and with the overall knowledge of what it will take in order for a student to make that transition from high school into higher education. 5 of our systems have retained the site coordinator position. Our evaluators noted that that position was the key piece and kind of the linchpin in some of the successes of this grant. That person is the person on the local level who owned, in the high school, who owned college access. Their responsibility was to make sure that these students were on track to make that transition. And that included not just the academic pieces, but the logistics of filling out applications, filling out FAFSAs. They owned college college access in that building. And I also think, just it's not on the screen, but just to note, I think one of the things that we benefit from implementing a program like this is that we now have 6 years of data, 6 years of best practices that will now inform and will improve the existing and future college access initiatives undertaken by not only the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, but across the state, whether it be through our strategic partnerships at the Department of Ed or with the Tennessee College Access and Success Network. So we'll see long terms not only the improvements not only in these counties, but in the quality of work and what we're able to do as we work in college access. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lee and Mary. She's going to provide you with a brief update regarding the Tennessee College Access and Success Network, along with the Lumina Latino Student Success Grant.
So as Troy mentioned, Gear Up will continue to inform all of our work across the state, but particularly through the work of the Tennessee College Access and Success Network, which is the network that connects all of the college access initiatives statewide. On December 9th, the Tennessee College Access and Success Network awarded over $680,000 in Race to the Top funding to create and expand college access and success programs statewide. The network received considerable interest in this inaugural grant competition, and the 11 winning projects will serve over 11,300 students and families. So the network awarded 3 different types of grants. Seed grants are 3-year grant programs designed to completely transform the college-going culture in a school or school system that has never before participated in targeted college access initiatives. The second are model program grants, which are 1-year grants designed to enhance existing college access initiatives. And the third are the smaller catalyst grants, which are also 1-year grants used for project development as a catalyst for long-term sustainability. And the awarded districts and schools are listed above. So the Office of P16 Initiative's newest project is the Lumina Foundation for Education funded Latino Student Success Grant, or the LSS grant as we affectionately call it at THEC. The Lumina Foundation recognized the strong connection between economic strength and college completion and launched a national effort to improve college completion among Latino students in metropolitan areas with rapidly growing populations. THEC is one of 12 projects in 10 states to receive one of the LSS grants. Our project specifically will focus on an expansion of the existing College Mentor Corps model to Kingsbury High School and Southwest Tennessee Community College through use of a near-peer mentor or case management approach, and also serve the surrounding Latino community through a bilingual public outreach campaign. So what's important to note is that Lumina Foundation is not just funding our grant project, but also the idea that a collaborative partnership will outlive the 4-year project and create systemic change in the Memphis community. Our project will leverage the strength and expertise of many organizational members to not only implement the project, but create the systemic and lasting change. Our project's core team members are THEC, the Memphis City Mayor's Office, Southwest Tennessee Community College, Kingsbury High School, Latino Memphis, YMCA of Memphis, Memphis Talent Dividend, and the Greater Memphis Chamber. So this is a 4-year grant program, but our project timeline includes a 6-month planning period in which the primary outcome is an integrated action plan, or a detailed work plan that outlines the processes and procedures in which we will achieve high-impact outcomes and achieve sustainability in Memphis. After the planning period ends, Lumina Foundation will approve our action plan and then approve our project. The implementation period will last through September of 2015 with the end goal of increasing Latino student college completion in Memphis. And we would be happy to take any questions.
Questions? Just a couple of comments. Thank you for your presentation. 2 things. The architect of our Gear Up program that really was the heart and soul and core of our outreach, the guy that got us here, the architect is one Brian Nolan, who developed that when he was here with us. And so Brian, it's run its cycle and you can see the results. So thank you for that. The other thing, the Latino Student Success Project, Mayor Wharton has really embraced that particularly, but it's also part of his overall initiative in Memphis. With they now have a Memphis Shelby Achieve, which is part of the Tennessee Achieve, which is based on the Ayers Foundation model largely. But Lumina will be sponsoring a meeting of mayors in Memphis with Mayor Wharton as the presider, or I guess the host, sometime this spring. Works, but again, I kind of wish he was here to talk about it, but he has truly captured the attention and the imagination of the Lumina Foundation as a big city mayor that gets it. And of course, we've heard him talk about this forever, but that's a good thing for us, for him, for all of us.
Definitely.
That's it.
All right. Thank you. We're now ready for our next item, which is improving teacher quality grants. We're going to ask Mr. Krause, come join us again. You are very popular this afternoon.
Wish I could tell you this is the last time I'll be speaking today, but it is not. It is appropriate for us to talk about this at this juncture in the agenda because Troy and Leanne just discussed really another aspect where higher ed and K-12 have joined together, and we really start thinking about higher ed and K-12 as kind of a seamless continuum. And so this is a grant program that we administrate here at THEC. I am going to ask Catherine Meyer. Catherine is, I recognized her earlier during the work session, and this should further emphasize what a crucial part of our team she's become. Catherine is a graduate of Emory University in Atlanta, currently a student of higher ed policy at Peabody, and she really serves a crucial role in administrating this grant program, and I'm going to defer to her.
Do you mind?
Dr. Rhoda, Chairman White, and members of the Commission, I'm here to present an information item to provide an update on the Improving Teacher Quality Grant for the 2012 cycle. The Improving Teacher Quality Grant is a federal grant program derived from the No Child Left Behind Act. The grant provides funding to public and private higher education institutions for the professional development of K-12 teachers. This professional development is generally in the form of summer workshops combined with supplementary meetings in the spring or fall. The instructional content must be aligned with the Common Core standards, either in English, language arts, or math, and needs to entail at least 25 contact hours and serve a minimum of 20 teachers. Additionally, each project must be a joint effort between a higher education School of Arts and Sciences and an institution for teacher and principal training, and must serve a high-need LEA. This year, 30 proposals were submitted for consideration. A notice of intent to submit was due by September 12th, and the completed proposals were due to THEC by October 17th. The Advisory Committee met on November 14th to discuss and evaluate the grants. Representatives from the Department of Education, the Board of Regents, TEQA, THEC, and K-12 and post-secondary schools were all included on the committee. After meeting separately in subject groups to discuss the proposals and score them based on the evaluation rubric, the committee compiled their top scoring proposals in a master list that was then discussed in regards to potential funding amounts and final questions. Proposals were funded in scored order with the top 10 receiving funding. I want to make a note that this is not actually the scored order, this is simply alphabetical for your convenience. The amounts range from $59,000 to $75,000, with a grand total of $716,000 awarded. As you can see, the final list includes public institutions from both systems, private institutions, and for the first time, one two-year institution. In accordance with federal regulation, the grants are distributed equitably among the grant divisions and will serve counties in East, Middle, and West Tennessee. They will serve around 300 teachers. Ultimately, these grants will help provide focused professional development to Tennessee's teachers in crucial Common Core subjects and better ensure that Tennessee students are college and career ready. Projects will conclude in December 2012, and I look forward to presenting the results of those workshops at that time. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. Okay. We're now ready for our legislative report. We'll call on Mr. Will Burns.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if Mike gave you a 10,000-foot perspective on one of his mini presentations, and Troy gave you a 30,000-foot perspective on Gear Up, we're going to cruise along at about 50,000 feet here on legislative matters. And I'll do my best to also incorporate Dr. Nolan in my presentation as well. So, Sorry. Well, seriously, very quickly, today is the filing deadline for legislation, and we'll have the final information tomorrow on bills filed today. But as of bills that were filed as of yesterday, there's been about 70 bills filed that we are tracking, and as usual, some of more interest than others. Obviously, the ones of most importance to us are ones that we've already reported to you about, is the one that the governor's filed on reorganization of various commissions. In that bill, you'll recall, it provides that the executive director of THEC will be a gubernatorial appointment. Then there's also the bill that deals with the sunset review and renewal of THEC. You'll recall that in the summer hearings, it was recommended that we would be given a 2-year extension. And again, the purpose of that was so that ultimately they get THEC, UT, and TBR on the same sunset cycle. So those will be coming up. There's also several other bills filed that directly impact the commission. There's been one bill filed that I find very interesting that provides that for THEC to promulgate any rules, they have to go through a rulemaking hearing. And of course, that's a deviation from the Uniform Administrative Procedures Act, which provides varying ways of promulgating rules. We think we know where that the folks that are interested in seeing that passed, and of course we'll be watching it closely and helping legislators understand the true situation. There are a couple of caption bills that are written to where the caption deals either specifically with the Higher Education Commission or the Part 20 of the code, the Education Code, which deals with post-secondary school authorization. We just saw those in the last couple of days and haven't had a chance to really follow up on that. We have an idea of who those were filed on behalf of and perhaps their reasoning, but we'll get some confirmation on that and provide you with information. And again, we'll be following that quite closely. There are a number of bills dealing with the lottery scholarship, which you'll recall Dr. Nolan was key with Senator Cohen and others in developing the legislation on that originally. But there's a number of bills on that. Of course, the main one deals with the recommendations of the lottery scholarship task force that the Senate had over the summer, and those recommendations are placed in a bill. And you'll recall that basically, in order to get starting with, I think, the 2015-16 class, in order to get the full $4,000 at the universities, the student will need to have a 3-point GPA and a 21 SAT. If they get less than that in either of those categories, they would get $2,000 at the university, and of course the full award also at the community colleges. There's a couple other bills real quickly. There's a bill again to deal with providing for a short lottery scholarship form. Right now, the FAFSA is that form. There's continues to be concerned about, in some quarters, about requiring people to include financial information on their lottery scholarship application when they really are not expecting to get any need-based aid. And so, of course, we'll be, again, watching those closely. Mr. Chairman, there's a number of other things. We will send out next week, or maybe the following week, a complete list of all the bills that were filed to give you kind of an indication. And if you've got any other questions about some other bills that you may have heard of, I'll be pleased to answer any questions at a time when we've got at some other point, or now if you want to take the time. So.
Have any questions for Will? No, thank you. We're looking forward to
Thanks.
this. All right. Thank you so much. Our last item, of course, Dr. Rhoda, just remind us about April, I guess.
Right, April 26th, Brian will be here. we'll have the same format unless otherwise planned, but work session in the morning and the full commission meeting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in this office.
All right. Thank you. What we'll do, we'll take about a 10-minute break, and then we'll go ahead and prepare for our joint meeting with the State Board of Education. All right. If there's nothing else, we're adjourned. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Robert White, and I'm Chair of the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. And on behalf of the Commission, I want to welcome the members and staff of the State Board of Education to our offices. We'll officially call this meeting to order, and we'll first begin by introducing ourselves. So I guess, why don't we start right here with the ladies?
I am Sharon Hayes. I'm on the THEC board.
Teresa Sloyan on the State Board of Education.
Carolyn Perry on the State Board of Education, representing the 5th Congressional District here in Nashville.
Lauren Haley, State Board of Education.
Renita Justice, State Board of Education.
Greg Fry, Tennessee Higher Education Commission student member.
Mike Edwards, State Board.
Charles Bone, THEC.
Jeanette Rogers, State Board.
Jim Ayer, State Board of Education.
Melvin Wright, State Board.
Gary Dixon, Executive Director, State Board.
Kevin Huffman, Commissioner.
Lonnie Roberts, State Board.
Zach Walden, THEC student voting member.
Rich Rhoda, THEC staff.
Fielding Ralston, State Board of Education.
And as I've already mentioned, I'm Robert White, and I'm from Johnson City, representing the 1st Congressional District. Thank you so much for being here. I believe everyone has received the agenda for the meeting in advance. We'll follow it as presented. I would like to say that I want to commend both staffs of the State Board and THEC for the solid staff work reflected in the meeting materials. The issues we're addressing this afternoon are important. They focus policies for improving education in our state at a very crucial time. Excuse me. In many respects, our agenda today oriented 2 years ago, as Rich mentioned earlier today, with a special session of the General Assembly, which produced Tennessee's First to the Top Act of 2010 and the Complete College Tennessee Act of 2010. These both are major educational reform acts that mandate significant changes in the way we go about K through 12 and higher education in the state of Tennessee. Much has been accomplished and much more remains to be done. We're really excited. So I will now call on Fielding Ralston for any opening remarks that he may have before we start our agenda.
Thank you, Robert. No really opening remarks. We're just glad to be here and looking forward to some of the challenges that you've outlined there.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, again, welcome to everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I do want to commend the State Board and THEC staffs for their collaboration on the day-to-day basis and at developing the agenda for this meeting. So, Dr. Rhoda, we'll call on you to introduce the first item.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the State Board, members of the Commission, guests. I'd also like to recognize that Representatives Gerald McCormick and Representative Harry Brooks are with us this afternoon. So thank you very much for being here with us. Just to follow the agenda as presented, the first item is the annual joint report. We'll have Art Fuller and Penny Shelton presenting that. This is, as the title would indicate, an annual report that we do required by statute. It's focused on a wide range of measures that highlight the links between pre-K to 12 and higher education. And of course, at the very core is producing greater proportion of Tennesseans college and career ready. So.
Good afternoon, both board and commission. You should have in your folder actually a copy of the annual joint report. We're just going to kind of briefly go through that for you. As Dr. Rhoda mentioned, this is required by statute, and by statute there are basically 4 main areas that are covered in the report. And so we're going to kind of tag team, go back and forth on those areas. The first area, so first I will outline what the 4 areas are, and then we'll move forward with the report. First area is actually looking at the extent of duplication, basically between pre-K and higher education. The second area is looking at compatibility. The transition basically between high school and to college, making sure that transition is as seamless as possible. Third area is actually looking at the master plans, and then the fourth is really looking at what does the data tell us now. One thing I would point out about this report, this is really the first that is beginning to reflect a lot of the substantial changes that the state has put in place with the Race to the Top and First to the Top legislation. So this is the first report that actually codifies the indicators that were adopted by the State Board of Education last year, and it really kind of gives a big overall picture in regards to the goals that the state wants to achieve. And so for this first section of the report, I'll turn that over to Penny, and it really has been a pleasure working with THEC staff on this report.
Good afternoon. To start off, we wanted to look at the data integration side of what we're doing with the State Board, primarily with teacher preparation programs. They're making data a primary resource in the classroom, specifically with the Tennessee Value Added Assessment System, or TVAS. Utilizing that same knowledge, the Tennessee Report Card on the Effectiveness of Teacher Training Programs analyzes TVAS results in conjunction with praxis test scores and placement and retention of teachers to provide a clear understanding of the successes and areas that need improvement in our teacher training programs. Patrick Bursick with the THEC Policy Planning and Research staff is actually working on a website in the final stages, creating that website to access the report cards online. Lastly, our data integration culminates in the statewide longitudinal data system, or SLDS, to provide one database that follows the student's progression from kindergarten to high school, college, and eventually the workplace. Moving away from data and into curriculum, Tennessee adopted the Common Core standards for elementary and secondary education in July 2010. The state is looking to have the new standards implemented statewide by the 2013-14 academic year. Part of this comprehensive plan for implementation provides transition support for teachers as well as equipping students being trained for teaching on the new standards. THEC has fully committed funds from the Improving Teacher Quality Grant Program and the STEM Professional Development Race to the Top project to educating and preparing our teachers on the Common Core. In preparation for these new standards, Tennessee is a governing body in the Partnership for Achieving Readiness in College and Career Consortium, or PARC, where common assessment is being developed for students within the Common Core. With regards to developmental instruction, as part of the Complete College Tennessee Act, universities will not be teaching any remedial or developmental education in classes by 2012. However, the Tennessee Board of Regents Developmental Studies Redesign Project has redefined traditional remedial and developmental classes. This project has altered learning support classes to provide more technology-based learning, allowing students to move at their own pace, as well as allowing instructors to be more available for hands-on support throughout the process to improve retention and success rates. This new structure is set to be implemented at all TBR community colleges by the academic year fall 2013. Within post-secondary access, the Tennessee Education Lottery Scholarship funded over 100,000 higher education students in the academic year 2010-11, and with legislation passed by the Tennessee General Assembly in the spring of 2011, TELS will also be available to fund summer semesters. Lastly, dual enrollment grants are allowing nearly 16,500 high school students to earn college credit before leaving high school.
And so one thing you'll notice in a lot of the initiatives that Penny was talking about, really the degree of collaboration between sharing data and information between the Department of Education and the higher education spaces is really paramount to making that happen and pulling out that success. The second area of the report is really looking for college transitions. You know, how seamless is the transition from high school to college? One of the things that the State Board actually did in April is it took a look at students, if they are actually enrolled in college classes and they're getting college level credit, you know, putting a process in place so that those students could actually get high school credit, unless those areas were related to kind of end of course exams related to No Child Left Behind. So that's another area where we're just trying to make the transition from high school to college more seamless. The third area of the report actually relates to the master plans of both of the agencies. The State Board of Education, we are actually in the process of looking again at our master plan, and it is very closely going to mirror the strategic plan that the Commissioner and the Department of Education have communicated. And so I would imagine at the next meeting next year, you'll see the very close alignment between the Department of Education strategic plan about becoming the fastest growing state in the nation and how the State Board's master plan is really mirroring those goals. And I'll turn it back over to Penny to talk about this.
Just wanted to take this opportunity to give everyone a status update on what we're doing with the public agenda policy for 2010 through 2015. It's available on page 6 of your joint report, but just to highlight a few parts of it, the outcomes-based funding formula was approved for implementation for academic year 2011-12. Performance funding standards were completed in April 2011 as the quality assurance counterpart to the productivity-based funding formula. A study of labor market supply and demand. It's a joint report that's produced by THEC and CBER and should be out, was out in April of 2011. It targets the state's increased degree production. In November 2012, the first public agenda progress report is to be published. We heard about that earlier. We've got Catherine, or I think Sarah's working on that, to be out soon. And institutional mission differentiation, those profiles were actually approved in November of 2010 and incorporated into the funding formula. They also serve as a tool for program approval. Incentives for research enhancement are ongoing through a collaboration of UT Knoxville and the Oak Ridge National Laboratories with the Memphis Research Consortium. And collaboration and reduced duplication. Wanted to note the productivity reviews continue annually and are reported to the Commission at its January meeting. Mr. Mike Cross actually reported on those earlier today. And there's been a revised letter of intent process for new program approval as well.
And really the meat of the report kind of begins on page 8, and what that is reflecting are the college and career ready goals and indicators that have been adopted by the Board of Education in conjunction with the Commission as well. And what you'll see in those indicators is that they are aggressive targets. At the State Board workshop, we just finished kind of talking about the difference between state measures and national measures. Within those indicators, you will see aggressive targets for both national tests like the NAEP, ACT, and also measures related to the TCAP. One thing moving forward, right now we just have the goals and the targets, but in future iterations of the report, you may see the progress that the state is making along those particular targets.
I did want to take this opportunity to talk about the college and career ready goals and indicators for higher education. Numbers 11, 12, and 15, those are the percent of first-time college and university freshmen enrolled only in credit-bearing courses, as well as percent of high school graduates who have attained post-secondary credits through a public institution prior to leaving high school with dual enrollment, as well as graduation rates for first-time full-time freshmen in associates and bachelor's programs. All of those have increased incrementally, and want to note that progress. Conversely, completing 1 year of post-secondary education, including industry certification, has decreased by a small margin. That's indicator number 14 in your joint report. Also, as a side note, indicators utilizing college-going rates exclude Williamson County from the original data, and Williamson County doesn't provide the Social Security numbers, so THEC actually goes back through using FAFSA data to include those numbers where possible. They were left out on number 12 in the report, but in the future we're going to be adding those anywhere possible. So, also, Art, thank you so much for your help. It's been great working with State Board through all of this.
Just in conclusion, if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. And what this report is really just beginning to reflect is the really significant work that both higher education and K through 12 are doing to raise the bar for all students.
I have one question.
Yeah.
And I look at the various grade levels, and next year being the first graduation class for high school diploma, how confident are you at the State Board of Education level that we're going to have, number one, a really high school graduation rate with these new requirements, and the the level of readiness that you hope to have with those students being prepared for that first class.
And I'll begin to answer a portion of that. And we actually had a discussion in our previous meeting about the graduation rates. One thing about Tennessee on our graduation rate side, Tennessee has actually done a pretty significant job. There was the anticipation that moving from a state method to kind of a national method, which is based on the National Governors Association, that we would actually see a significant drop in the graduation rate. And actually, that was not the case. So we were kind of pleasantly surprised by that. And there's actually been some national press where kind of commending Tennessee on the improvement that is done with high school graduation rate. In terms of the achievement indicators, I feel confident in saying that it's going to be a lagging indicator. Right now, we're kind of getting the reality check. We're seeing that Tennessee is not where we want to be when you compare us to our surrounding states. And so now that we have this baseline and we have the students that are kind of now just gradually getting exposure to the new standards in the Common Core curriculum, it's like now that we know what the data is based on these more rigorous standards, what are the methods and processes that we're putting in place, and Race to the Top is really providing a nice framework. And I'm sure there may be either the commissioner or Dr. Nixon may have additional comments on that as well.
I feel fairly confident that our schools have done a good job of addressing the needs of children. I don't think we'll see a drastic fall in the graduation rate. However, I am cautious to expect a significant improvement in the college readiness immediately. I think those improvements will be incremental and will be over time as students have been in the curriculum longer and are better prepared to be successful.
I completely agree. I think schools are doing a good job of getting kids enrolled in the right classes to graduate. I think the challenge is moving through the system kids who have high enough skill levels that when they do graduate are ready to go into a job, or when they go into higher ed institutions don't require remediation. And that's going to be an ongoing project.
I totally agree. One of the concerns I have is I hear a lot from the business community that the hope is that there would be a continued commitment, even if we see some fallout from that first class and some people getting a little cautious, that we hope that there will be a continued commitment to stay the course.
Oh, yeah.
What we saw last year in the change in the percent proficient in 8th grade math, I think is a pretty good barometer of what we hope to see. We saw about an 8 percentage point gain in the percent proficient advance in 8th grade math on TCAPs. If we can continue to make those kind of gains, we'll soon be where we want to be, but it's going to take time.
Yeah, we're certainly not backing off of rigorous standards.
Art, one thing on Measure 9, we've got the ACT readiness in 4 areas, ACT. I really think in future reports we need to include the measure of how many students are meeting all 4 ACT readiness benchmarks. I think that is as important as the measuring against each one of the individual ones.
We'll be sure to do that.
We have some work ahead of us, Fielding, to go in, and then the Commission and I will get together and work on this, of setting those targets or trajectories for 2 or 3 areas. The meeting all 4 benchmarks is one of them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. The second item is a sales program briefing, and we're going to have a number of presenters. And I'm going to ask Paula Short to come forward. But, this also gets at remedial and developmental education. It's an issue with all of us, as we just talked about. And by the good work of everyone present and their staffs, Tennessee is bringing something to the national arena, as it were, as a model of what we're doing. So one of the finest examples is about to be presented. Dr. Short, Chief Academic Officer for the Board of Regents system.
Thank you, Dr. Rhoda. Chairman Ralston and Chairman White, members of the board, members of the commission. My role is to briefly set the stage for a presentation that will be shared with you by colleagues from Chattanooga State Community College. I've heard college readiness here today. I've heard collaboration, and I think those are two pervasive themes that you will see played out in the sales program that these folks will be presenting to you today. As you know, the Board of Regents has spent the last 4 years actually working on redesigning the way we approach helping students who come to us not ready for college work to very quickly move to being college ready and in college credit-bearing courses. Our remedial redesign has achieved national recognition for the work that we're doing. We have actually coined the term learning support. We don't use the term developmental studies or remedial studies anymore. It's learning support because our role is to help students have what they need in order to be successful in their post-secondary endeavor. Dr. Nixon and I have had long conversations for quite a few years about how we work together, both K-12 and higher education, to make sure that we are both serving those students and ensuring that when they come to our institutions of higher education, they are ready to do college-level work. We, in the process of our work to redesign our learning support, we've had one of our campuses come forward with a very innovative approach to that collaboration with our high schools. And what we'd like to do today is share with you the sales program that has been developed by Chattanooga State Community College. I think it is a beautiful example of collaboration between higher ed and our high schools to meet the agenda and goals that have been set for Race to the Top and the Complete College Tennessee Act. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Kimberly McCormick from Chattanooga State Community College, who will begin our presentation this afternoon. And thank you, Dr. Rhoda, for the invitation to speak today.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for having us here today. We will be mindful of your time. We know you have been here for quite some time having your meetings today. Sales. Seamless alignment, integrated learning support. What does that mean? Well, again, I'm Kim McCormick, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs at Chattanooga State. And with me today, I have John Squires, who is the Department Chair for Mathematics at Chattanooga State, and Dr. Robert Den, who is the Dean of School Relations and University Articulation. We are going to present today sales. I will briefly go through the history of how this program has developed at our college and on our campus. John will actually tell you about the program itself, and then at the end, if you have questions about fiscal implications, which I'm sure you might, Robert will be here to answer those and address those needs. Sales is somewhat, I guess I could say it's our baby. I can tell you, though, right up front, as we talk about the history, who we are not. We are not college professors who pontificate about how it should be done in K-12. This is who we are. John, Robert, and I are all certified K-12 teachers and administrators with a long history of teaching. We've been athletic coaches, high school administrators, grant coordinators, curriculum facilitators, but now we all are at Chattanooga State in higher ed. We have taught at the college level, and again, now we're in administration. So we're not coming to you with these grand ideas of what we think should be done. What we're doing is coming to you with ideas of what we have seen and done ourselves in the past. If you think about sales, it's an integrated alignment of curricula and instruction delivered in a true P16 partnership of K-12 teachers and college instructors that is proven affordable for the state, and it can be replicated in any of your regions. We think that is very important. Before we get going, though, you have a blue notebook on your desk. If you don't mind, would you take out the definition sheet? And I'm I know that most of you know exactly what is here, but just in case, this is a cheat sheet as we go through this program. Dual credit. Dual credit courses are taught by high school teachers, and this high school teacher is having a real hard time staying behind this podium, so bear with me. I'd rather be out there. Dual credit courses taught by high school teachers. The students at the end take an assessment. If the students pass the assessment, then we bank them credit for that course. Dual enrollment, of course, as you know, those courses are taught by college teachers, and they are college-bearing credit courses. The students do not pay for dual credit. They do pay for dual enrollment. However, with the lottery grant, students have a reduced cost for that. Early college is simply what we call dual enrollment at Chattanooga State. And then hybrid courses are courses that are taught with some lecture, classroom instruction, but also with an online component as well. And again, Dr. Short alluded to the fact that our learning support now is new. Our TBR and Dr. Short has led a fine example of how to redesign developmental remedial education. So developmental remedial, those are the old names for how we used to do it, and frankly, the way it did not work. And learning support is the new way, where in math, for instance, there are 5 competencies, and students have to meet those 5 competencies to move on to college credit-bearing courses. What I would like to do now is to tell you what our challenge is at Chattanooga State. And this is indicative of also of what's happening in the state as well, but this is, if red is bad, blue is good, if that helps. If you look at Chattanooga State, and we did, at the number of students, or the percentage of students seeking an associate degree requiring at least one remedial level course coming into us at Chattanooga State, 71% of our students. Statewide, that's 75.3%. The students placed at Chattanooga State in remedial math who earn any certificate or degree within 3 years, 5%. The number of Chattanooga State students paying for remedial math courses that do not count toward graduation. This is 2010-11, 1393. Those students paid over $1 million for those courses. Now, as we sat and not pontificated, but pondered, right, Robert, what could we do? We knew that we had just completed a study, actually it was part of my dissertation, and we looked at a 3-year study of students who were early college, dual enrollment students at Chattanooga State. Those students entered our program with ACTs ranging from a 14 to 33. The 14, if you think about that, that's a composite 14 score, but some of them could have had a sub-score in math, for instance, that allowed them to be able to take that developmental or that math course. Dr. Hewlett, our provost, is here with us today, and she's got a pretty good knack at noticing students who can make it, even though their scores may not be where they should be. And then that's going to be an important point in just a moment. Of these students, these early college students, we found that 95% of them moved on to college immediately after high school graduation. 96% of those students persisted through the first year of a 2-year community college program. 90% of those students beginning in universities persisted through the 2 years of the 4-year program. And in our specific ECHO dual enrollment early college course called Early College Hybrid Online Math, students had a 97% success rate. So, we know what our problem is, we know what has been proven to work on our campus, and we know that you have done this for us. The legislation has set the policy, the higher ed policy, the K-12 policy, and we decided that we could use what we knew was working to come up with something to try to meet the needs of these acts. If you, and John is coming up in just a second, but we kind of look at sales like this. It's as if the high school teachers, a student is climbing a mountain towards graduation, completion. The high school teachers are below, pushing that student up, and the college professors are yanking them by the arms, pulling them up together. That's what sales is about. We decided that we could capitalize on what is already proven on our campus. We're going to transform developmental education. We're going to divert students from traditional remedial programs. We're going to accelerate their progression toward completion in college-level courses, intensify the instruction, again, with both high school and college professors, high school teachers and college professors, and we want mathematics not to be a hindrance, but a gateway to their success. At this point, John Squires is going to actually tell you about sales.
So, picking up where she left off, the last sentence there, make mathematics a gateway, not a gatekeeper. Right now, it's a gatekeeper. In fact, it's a roadblock. It's the roadblock. Of the 70% of the students coming out who need at least one remedial or developmental course, the vast majority of them need math. And then you compare the early college statistics that she just went through with the following fact. In any community college in Tennessee, about 70% of the students coming in are going to need one math course. 50% or more of those students will drop out of college in one semester. So at that point, you've got to do something different than what's going on. So we have had planning meetings with 4 partners. Chattanooga State has kind of taken the lead on this initiative, but we've also been involved in discussions with Cleveland State, Nashville State, and Jackson State, as well as the Tennessee Board of Regents. So here's how sales works. It is a collaborative developed that is a combined high school and math course that is free to all students. Essentially, it is the bridge math course that is going to be offered in Tennessee high schools as part of the Tennessee Diploma Project. So what we want to do is we want to align the Department of Education standards and the TBR learning support competencies. But the trick is not really to align them, but rather to embed the learning support competencies within the bridge math course. So this really remains a high school course, okay? It is the high school bridge math course. We are targeting students not college ready, those who have taken the ACT at the end of their junior year and have not scored the 19. And we offer this sales course, which is really a high school bridge math course. The key to this is this: to offer it as a dual credit situation. You embed the competencies of the learning support math inside the high school bridge math course. Those competencies are online. The students have the opportunity to display mastery of those competencies, and then they get their competencies banked at the local community college as they display those masteries. Okay? That really is the key to the whole thing. Now from there, we want to show you what happens from there once you do that. So let's say in the fall term that a student takes the bridge math course. Then if they are successful in the bridge math in the fall, what we would like to see happen is to expand the opportunities for them to take an early college math course in the spring via the ECHO model. By the way, the big advantage of the ECHO model is this: it can be offered in any high school. It can literally be offered in any high school. Right now, we have used it to expand the opportunities in our own service area. We offer it in approximately 15 high schools this year. most of them could not have early college without this model. What you do is you offer an online math course, but you have the high school in early college, but you have the high school teacher act as a learning facilitator, and you assign a college instructor to work with that high school teacher. This overcomes the staffing obstacles that early college faces. But it also has a very high success rate, 97% over the last 3 years. So if they're successful in the fall term, which means they displayed mastery over those learning competencies, then hopefully they can move on into an early college program, the early college math, that spring, take something like introductory statistics, and get a college math credit coming out of high school as well. If they are in some sense unsuccessful, in other words, they do not display mastery over all of the competencies, but they display mastery over some of them, these students could actually continue working online during the spring in order to keep working and hopefully get mastery over the remaining competencies during the spring. Okay? For example, at Chattanooga State, they could even come out to our math lab and just keep working on the competencies during the spring term if they wished. Okay? So here's the current model of what's going on. Students struggle in math. They score at the developmental level, less than 19. They're placed in a conventional remedial math course. Oftentimes they will retest, and they could be placed in a bridge math course, and they could retest at the end of that senior year and still be placed at developmental. And then they start college in remedial math, and guess what? The cycle just starts itself all over again. And here's something I want to point out. This cycle with the bridge math, the new learning support, and at the universities, it can actually go on 3 times in a student's career. For example, they could test less than 19 on the ACT. They take the bridge math course. Then they test again on the ACT, and again they test less than 19. Then they go to college, at a community college. They make it partway through. Maybe they're doing okay. Maybe they make it all the way through, but they don't take their college-level math. They can actually transfer to university and be placed right back in developmental math for the 3rd time in 3 years. At that point, it's kind of like, the little hamster on the treadmill, right? And the problem is, these hamsters on the treadmill are our students, and the majority of them are falling off the treadmill before they actually are successful. So compare that scenario with this. A student struggles and scores less than 19 on the ACT. But then they take the bridge math course, and they master the competencies that fall. Then that spring, they take a introductory statistics or something like that in the ECHO model, and they succeed there. They then have a 3-hour general education math credit going into college. At that point, they're actually 3 semesters ahead of where they were before. So instead of starting a year behind, they're starting a semester ahead. What a difference. Then that means they go to college, and our early college success shows that those students then tend to continue on and succeed and be retained. And they tend to graduate at a much, much higher rate. And this isn't just in Tennessee. The fact is, national studies have been done on this as far as showing that if you can get them to enter college a step ahead instead of a step behind, it makes all the difference in the world. I think we had a question right over here.
Sure. This slide right here, I have a question about.
Sure.
Say, for instance, they did take this geometry.
Yep.
And I'm looking at the new high, graduation requirements.
Sure.
And you have to take geometry and a 4th higher level.
Correct.
Okay, and you're a senior.
Right.
And you've taken geometry, you struggled, but you made it through. Now, are you saying that I've taken the ACT, I've scored low on the math score, but I've got to take this next math to graduate.
You've got to take the bridge math to graduate.
So I'm taking
Correct.
this math,
Mhm.
and I'm taking this course too?
No, it's embedded in the same course.
Oh, great.
It serves as the course. So a lot of people, a lot of these seniors are going to be looking for a fourth-year course. The bridge math is kind of the option for those seniors who score less than a 19, or whatever that benchmark is that Tennessee sets. But no, this is not an additional course. In the fall, they take the bridge math, and the learning support is embedded within that. Okay? So there's not two courses, there's one, right? And that's the key to the whole thing. Establish that true partnership between the high school and the community college, and get that earlier cycle broken. All right? So, questions? More questions?
So what are your results of the students who have gone through this program? What kind of numbers are you actually showing?
Well, I've been involved in the redesign, very heavily involved in the redesign as far as the college level, okay? So the results there have been fantastic. Much higher success rates. You speed them along, accelerated learning, you get them working, and they just start flying. So, for example, at Chattanooga State last fall, we had 81 students who completed all of developmental math in one semester. And we had one who completed all of developmental math and introductory statistics in one semester. Okay? And we had a bunch more who completed all of developmental math and then went on to the college level. They didn't quite complete it, but they started and got a good portion of the way through. So we have great success there. The ECHO model has been around for 3 years. We started it with one high school, in one class, 10 students. 3 years later, we're at 15 high schools, 400 students this year. 97% success rate. We often see the same sort of thing as far as the accelerated learning. Some students will take advantage of that and really complete multiple courses in one semester. It also offers a big advantage from the following standpoint. We have students right now at Chattanooga State in high school taking Calculus 1 and Calculus 2 through a strategy called the one-room schoolhouse, and we are able to offer those classes when only 1 or 2 students need that course. Well, that's a huge benefit to those students who need that course and otherwise couldn't get it. But to answer your question, sales is going on right now. We picked the same high school that we started ECHO with, Red Bank High School. It's going on right now this spring. We met with the principal. We met with the high school teacher. We've got a college teacher that is working with them. It's going very well. We just had a meeting last week looking at everything as far as, once you get in there, and then you go, okay, how is this really going to work? But it's going very well. We expect, and it's early, but so far the results would indicate that the vast majority of those students are going to have a really good head start on those learning competencies, and probably at least half of them will finish them all. That's what the early indications are. So that's how it's going so far. Now, even if those students who don't complete all of them, even if they complete 2/3 of them, they're still then a semester ahead of where they would have been otherwise when they get those competencies banked. So it's a big advantage. Other questions? Robert, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the financial?
Good afternoon. Currently, students who want a head start by taking college classes before they graduate high school have access to only one source of financial assistance. The dual enrollment grant provides juniors and seniors $100 per credit hour up to $600 maximum per term. This funding is non-repayable up to $1,200. Any funding over that amount is charged against the student's Hope Scholarship
during his or her first year of regular matriculation. Now, although the legislature created the grant through TCA 494930, which includes the eligibility requirements, the award amounts are set by THEC, Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation. This is an example of how the current award policy will affect students who wish to take advantage of the Sales Math Spring course, the College Credit-Bearing Math 1530 Statistics course. The cost of the course and the materials, minus the DE grant award, would still require students to pay $230, which for many of our students would be prohibitive. This structure applies not only to the students in the sales program, but to all dual enrollment students in Tennessee. Now, along with this sales proposal, we're proposing a change in the award amount to cover the cost of this one course. So remember, the fall part of sales is the dual credit. It's a free high school course. They finish their competencies. They're ready to move on to their college-level math, that 3-hour credit-bearing college math course in the spring. And this would allow all students to participate, so funding wouldn't be an issue for that spring course. Imagine, if you will, students who aren't going into math and engineering finished with college math for the rest of their lives. And for some of them, that's pretty exciting, before they even leave high school. Okay? Now, when THEC originally set the $100 per credit hour award, it was their intent to support a high school student for one class per term. That was their intent, as this was the cost for a 3-hour course in Tennessee's community colleges. Of course, as tuition fees rose, the award amount remained the same, creating a larger and larger gap, knocking more and more students out of the opportunity. Now, that was the cost of families and students. Now, let me talk about the cost of implementing sales. We are working now on a regional level to get some funding for some of these pilots, and also with Dr. Short, TBR, with our other partner community colleges, 2 different levels. The sales team is pursuing these 2 grant opportunities to help launch the sales program. Through TBR Access and Diversity Grant, we are applying for $123,000 to pilot the program in just the Chattanooga State Service region. And one of those schools started, jumped the gun, and was so excited to start it, they just said, well, let's start even before you win the grant. And those awards are going to be announced in March. As part of the TBR multi-regional initiative, we are partnering with 3 other community colleges in application for $1 million through Next Generation Learning Challenge. However, we don't want to stop there. We believe that this opportunity, this sales opportunity, should be available to every student in Tennessee, and ultimately can become a national model. I believe we can fix what's been wrong with developmental education, not only in Tennessee, but in the whole country. And that's all I have. Any questions about financial implications, funding, opportunities? Dr. McCormick, did you want to wrap up? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready for our next item?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the presentation. The next item, again, all about college readiness, is about the SREB College Readiness Project. And David Sevier, the Board of Education staff, and Mike Krause and the THEC staff will be talking about this. But this goes back to the adoption of the Common Core standards, July of 2010, and these standards are currently being implemented across the state. And a considerable amount of effort is being made to ensure that the students make a successful transition. So Tennessee is one of a small number of states, I believe 5 states, that have been selected by SREB and receiving support from the Gates Foundation to develop a transitional course for the senior year of high school that is grounded in the new Common Core standards. So David and Mike have been involved in this and worked with people at the SREB level, and here they are.
Thank you, Dr. Rhoda, and thank you, chairs and board and commission members. Sometimes it's a struggle, frankly, for this meeting to find topics of interest that are of interest to both bodies. And so we're really pretty proud of what you just saw, because I think that cuts across both domains, and what you're about to see, or what you're about to hear about. Mike and I had the opportunity to travel to Atlanta to meet, as Dr. Rhoda said, with folks from several states in the Southern Regional Education Board, and as an outgrowth through a grant they've given. I don't want to give too much away, but I would just say that, as we're thinking about, I think there's no better time right now how we're connecting across that. There's always been such a chasm there between 12 and 13, grade-wise, and now I'm really proud of the work that's going on in terms of bridging that. And so I would just say, turn it over to Mike at this point.
Thank you. David provided a very good segue in discussing this gap between K-12 and higher ed that we talk about all the time. But talking about that is even different now after the implementation of the Common Core standards. It fundamentally changes several different things. People have recognized that, external funders have recognized that, and the Gates Foundation specifically recognized that. They've partnered with SREB. SREB has selected 5 states to participate in this project. And at the core of this project is the notion that while the Common Core standards cannot be boiled down to one simple difference between the old standards, it is fair to say that in literacy, we're really talking about difficulty of text and a student's ability to function, critically analyze, and then write about what they've just read outside of canonical literature. So we're not just talking about English. We're talking about a student's ability to read and reason within the science realm. We're talking about a student's ability to be able to read and solve math problems. And so it's this notion of diverse abilities to analyze text that's at the center of this project, and we're excited to be a part of it. The background being, I've just discussed, and that is the Gates Foundation took a look at all the states that had really committed to Common Core implementation. It was a central part of our Race to the Top application, which Katrina will discuss in just a minute. We've doubled down with our Title II funds to say that we're going to help teachers implement the Common Core standards. And so with those things in place, Tennessee was selected to participate in this. We met in November, and all the stakeholders were present. The Department of Education, TBR, UT, and ourselves were there, and Dave Spence came in and said, look, we want you to participate in this. We want you to talk about literacy outside of the sphere of English and talk about it truly equipping students to succeed in all of their classes that they're going to meet in their first year. We were selected to participate, traveled to Atlanta in early December, and we came away with a central program objective, and that was to have a transitional course for the senior year in the Common Core standards that to prepare students to succeed in all their entry-level courses. It is based on the English standards, and so within the English Common Core standards, the notion of a student being able to read an informative text but also read a fictional text is certainly central. But again, it incorporates the science and technical subject standards as well. It's focused on developing their ability to read those texts and be able to make assumptions. The structure of the program is interesting. So what this envisions is a senior year course. It spans history, science, English, and they're broken up into modules that would be taught in an interdisciplinary fashion. And so the structure would look like this. Beginning in fall, you would do each of your 3 modules, and then throughout the course of the academic year, you kind of have ascending levels of difficulty. And last week, Dr. Mazzara from the department and I traveled to Atlanta, and one of the consultants said something that stuck with me. He said, if you look at the English Common Core standards, the 10th standard in every single level always has to do with difficulty of text. And so as these difficulty levels ascend, the students will begin reading texts that force them to infer more and more, which we know is a skill that is going to serve them well when they enter college. The deliverables of this project, we hope to get together a 6-module paper version curriculum that teachers can implement in their classrooms. Clearly, one will provide the curricular support and guides that teachers will need to be successful, but the point I really want to focus on is the online version. We will be very frank, and some of the discussions that Dr. Mazzara and I have had along with Dr. Severe are that our senior year is pretty tight right now. The diploma project has some required courses. Our seniors are taking them. We are asking a lot. It may be, which this remains to be seen, but it may be that an online version provides the LEAs with the flexibility they need to implement this.
Can I just I would just interject here that, this is an amazing transformation from where we were. When we started the Tennessee Diploma Project, it was really about taking back the senior year. Really, seniors, we didn't really require much of them credit-wise. They had to get through English and they had to get through a half year of history and a half year of government and a half year of economics. And now, isn't it a great problem to have that we're requiring enough that we're going to have to find ways to ask them to do more. So I think it gives us an opportunity to be very creative in this regard.
I also want to skip to this last part, and that is as we continue to ask our teachers to adjust to new standards and to operate in ways they haven't in the past, that a key part of this, I heard this from SREB last week, is a key part of this is a way to help our teachers receive professional development, not only to teach this course, but professional development in the Common Core standards, which is going to serve them well in everything they do. So the Tennessee team, moving forward, you see before you, want to point out it does not just consist of central office staff. We have faculty from several institutions and LEAs. We are physically participating in the writing of this course, and as you all know, that can be messy work. We're sitting down with standards and we're determining what goes in and what doesn't, which texts go in and what doesn't. That work is going to span the next 12 months. I would say this time next year we will be able to present to you, hopefully, a completed course plan, complete with a pacing guide, and we'll be able to see how this could interact with our current degree plans. And finally, I think by fall 2013, we would be able to implement this. Just like to emphasize, our Tennessee faculty traveled last week along with the other 5 states. They acquitted themselves very well and are going to be at the table as we're designing this course. So we feel really good about how the course is going to turn out because we have Tennessee voices involved. And we think that ultimately this is going to be something that improves all of our students' readiness and their ability to succeed in college. Any questions? Thank you very much for your time.
Very good. Right. Okay, well, thank you, both David and Mike. Great. Okay, the final item, I asked Katrina Miller to come forward from the THEC staff, is to give an update on where things are with the first to the top programs that THEC administers for higher education, but you'll hear a very close link with, obviously, K-12, because that's what this is about. Katrina.
Thank you, Dr. Oda, and the commission members and board members. Today, like Dr. Oda said, I want to talk to you a little bit about where those intersections are and how we're really in a collaborative environment and supporting each other in both of our goals. First, I want to start with the Department of Education released the one-year report on our first year of Race to the Top going from July 2010 through June 2011, and that was just released in the past week or so, as well as our annual performance report, which reports on the indicators. Some of the successes that have been highlighted in year one are in regards to the new teacher and principal evaluation system. As I'm sure you know if you have seen a news program in the last year, there's been a lot of information on that and a lot of conversation around it. And I think that's the biggest highlight of this program is that it's opening up new conversations within the community, getting people more engaged, and also new conversations with teachers in the classrooms and in the schools, and creating those professional learning communities that we all hear about but aren't quite sure about what they are. Along those lines, in higher education, there was some intensive 4-day training that the teachers had to go through that evaluated the teachers. So these were the school leaders and the teacher leaders in all of the schools. One thing that was offered this year was that higher education institutions that train teachers, which is over 40 programs in our state, were offered this same training and ability to get it certified so that when they're in their pre-service classrooms, they can tell teachers exactly what to expect, what's coming, and the conversations that they need to have before going into the classroom. This was essential to make sure that there's not a hiccup in that pipeline, that when they get out of the higher education classroom and they enter in their K-12, they know exactly what those expectations are. The second aspect of that is making sure that we understand the data. We all hear quite often that Tennessee is a data-rich state, and we definitely are. But one of the things that we failed to do in the past is really use that data to change our practices, inform our policy, and also get it into the hands of the people who need it. So one of the first things that we did in the past year was make sure that every teacher in this state had access to their TVOS scores. Not only their teacher effect scores, but their student scores, so they know where their students are and where they need to go.
In addition to that, through Battelle for Kids, which is acronym here BFK, they did trainings for teachers across the state to help them understand the data and formative assessment practices to make sure that students are at achievement levels where they need to be. Also, one of the more exciting things in our state for higher education, and this is the first time where we really align our professional development practices for K-12 and higher ed, is that those modules are provided to all of our higher education institutions free of charge, as well as all our alternative providers. So they have access to all of the same professional development that our counterparts in K-12 are going through. That was really innovative and something that's gotten the attention of a lot of national media sources, and we're really proud of that. In the near future, we hope to host training sessions for those higher education faculty to help them understand the resources that they have available in training those teachers. That also includes our community colleges. So we have 40 teacher preparation programs, but our community colleges were also given access to this because they have a really important part of that pipeline in their Associates of Science in Teaching degree. The next two things I want to highlight in year one are really, again, talking about this pipeline, but focusing on the area of STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. And earlier we heard some information from the academic programs that was really showing that we're not producing enough STEM degrees in our state. And this is one of the areas where we're trying to solve that problem. The first part, a commission member mentioned that we need better math and science teachers. We need those people in K-12 that are getting students excited about STEM, helping them understand it so they see a future for themselves in higher education in STEM and in the workforce in STEM. So this program, the You Teach replication, is at 4 sites, 2 of which are funded through Race to the Top, and 2 are funded through a partnership between higher ed and K-12, the THEC and the Department of Education. This program goes into math and science classrooms, so freshmen and sophomores majoring in math and science degrees who really had no concept of going into education. And they talk to them about, have you considered education as a field? They offer 2 courses. They're called Step 1 and Step 2, free of charge to those students so they can get a taste of education. And the really great thing about this program is that you complete your math and science degree in 4 years, but you also complete your teacher certification in your area of interest in the same 4 years. So it's a consolidated program, fast-tracked. They're in the classroom early. There's a 50% attrition rate with those first 2 classes, which we expect because, as we know, not everyone's designed to be a K-12 teacher. And we want those students to get a feel for it right away and say, yeah, I don't really like students, so probably K-12 teaching isn't the thing for me. But we also have those students that are like, this is great, this is such a high, you're influencing the future generations. So like I said, we have 4 institutions replicating that, and we have 528 students currently enrolled. And the statistics that I always love to give about this is, with our over 40 institutions preparing teachers, in the past we prepare about 200 math or science teachers a year. In 1 year alone, we had 7 physics teachers statewide that we prepared. With You Teach, in 4 universities, we will produce 150 to 200 graduates annually. So it's an exponential increase. Right now, we have 50 students enrolled in physics. It's an amazing number, amazing increase in 4 programs. And really, it all comes down to changing the way we think about training teachers, which is what this program is pushing us to do. The second part where we really had a focus on STEM was mentioned earlier, and these are our STEM professional development grants. We have 10 grants out right now for a total of about $1.8 million that will be in over 33 counties and numerous school districts, serving about 300 teachers. We'll release an RFP, a request for proposals, next week that will triple that number. So we're releasing about $4.2 million, and we hope to have about 20 additional programs to really increase the number of STEM professional development opportunities. And these grants are centered around using content faculty in higher education, our math and science partners, to go in and train our K-12 teachers to help them get up to speed. We've seen a drastic change in what we expect for our especially middle school math teachers in the Common Core standards. So we want to make sure that higher education is a true partner in that and getting those teachers up to speed in what they need to be doing. So those are some of the year 1 highlights. And we're seeing great success, early success and indicators that show that Race to the Top has been a great investment in our state, and we're going to make real progress, especially in our pipeline. So what's going on in year 2? What are the big things that we expect in year 2? The number one thing is we've done a lot of training around helping current K-12 teachers understand TVOS, understand student achievement and assessment data, and get them to where they need to be to improve student achievement. The next part of that is making sure that those pre-service teachers, those ones in higher education that are going to be going into the field, also understand that, so that when they enter the classroom, we don't have to do this professional development again. They know from the start what's expected and how to use these data to improve student achievement. We're working with the SAS Institute to develop an 8-hour online component that will be available, again, to all higher education institutions that train teachers as well as alternative providers at no cost to be integrated into their curriculum. We got to see a preview of these before Christmas, and they're absolutely fabulous, and we're really excited not only to give them to higher ed, but that they'll also be offered to current teachers who may need a refresher course. And what these do is help them see the dashboard they'll see as a teacher. It's an exact replication of that, so they're actually going through exactly what it would look like and helping them understand what the data are, how you get to those growth measures, and then also giving them some case studies where they go in, dig through the data, and try to figure out what they need to do to implement in the classroom to make real student changes. Those should be live in the fall of this year, and they're being piloted by a select group of faculty members currently. And they really seem pleased with the development of that, and that it will really change practice in our pre-service curriculum. The next aspect of where higher ed and K-12 are really working together in tandem is the Common Core Standards implementation. Common Core Standards will be fully implemented in 2013-14 school year, so we're working with the Department of Education staff on making sure that all the professional development going on in K-12 is also happening in higher ed. Not only do we need math and science and English faculty in higher ed to understand what the Common Core Standards are, but we need those education faculty who train future teachers to make sure that those future teachers are up to speed on those as well and know how to get students there. We're currently developing a curriculum that will be implemented into the higher education pre-service classrooms to make sure that they understand what the Common Core Standards are and how to use them and deconstruct them effectively in the classroom. So what's next? We've raised expectations for students by implementing the Common Core Standards. We've raised expectations for teachers and school principals through the evaluation system. It's time that we raise expectations for our teacher preparation programs. We talked a little bit earlier about the report card on teacher training programs, and for those of you who were in our last meeting, there were some pretty sobering results. Some of the results were great. We have some real highlights of programs that are doing a great job, and there are definitely some programs that need to implement some drastic improvements to make sure when our teachers graduate from higher education, they're ready to teach in the classroom on the first day and to bring students to where they need to be. We're working with the Department of Education and the State Board of Education to reform the way we approve teacher training programs. In the past, the benchmark and really what we've always done is looked at our NCATE accreditation, which is the national accrediting body for teacher preparation programs. While that will be a minimal standard of teacher preparation, we're looking to see at what those interim things will be. And a major point of that will be the report card on teacher preparation. Are your students achieving? Are they increasing student achievement in their classroom? Are they having significant gains in TVOS scores? So we hope to bring you at the next meeting, and then in the meeting in the summer, some new licensure standards for your approval, and to really work with all of these higher education students to get Tennessee to where it needs to be. Now, I can take any questions that you may have.
I just want to say great progress.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very exciting.
It is really exciting. I think one of the things that I hear most often in national meetings is we go to meetings about where they're talking about communication, and there's just not that communication between higher ed and K-12. And that's a hurdle we crossed several years ago here in Tennessee. And we're really all working hand in hand to make this happen. And that's just something that the progress that we've achieved so far couldn't have happened without that.
Comments, questions?
Thank you.
All right. This concludes the agenda for the meeting. Are there any announcements? If not, being no further business for this joint meeting, we're adjourned. Thank you. Great. Safe.
There you go.
Yes, I'm excited. I tell you.
See you. Yeah.
See you later.